Chapter 34-48. Just looking for someone. Of course, Zhuowen found that the figures on the Street of Three Purities were all practitioners at the level of sky-reaching master. They wandered on the Street of Three Purities to buy what they needed from the shops on both sides. Once they bought something, they would leave in a hurry and return to their cave residences in the depths of the Street of Three Purities to practice in seclusion. Moreover, Zhuowen found that the heavenly way energy in the Street of Three Purities was extremely rich, much richer than in the outside world. He took a deep breath, and the heavenly way energy poured into his lungs and spread to his whole body, making him feel indescribably comfortable. Zhuowen finally knew why so many sky-reaching master experts gathered in the heaven accessing place. It was because the heavenly way energy here was richer and the rules of heavenly way were clearer, which allowed sky-reaching master practitioners to practice faster. Zhuowen roughly swept his gaze over Three Clear Street. Although the cultivators on the streets were scattered, there were actually several hundred of them after a careful count. It was the first time for Zhuowen to see hundreds of sky-reaching master practitioners all at once. And these were just the practitioners strolling on the street, as well as the practitioners who had opened many cave residences in the depths of the street. In the Street of Three Purities alone, there were probably nearly 1,000 sky-reaching master practitioners, which was a terrifying number. But Zhuowen thought it was normal. So many years had passed since the starry sky had developed, and many sky-reaching master experts had appeared in every era. After so many eras, even if some sky-reaching master practitioners had died or reached the end of their lifespan, the number of sky-reaching masters who remained was still terrifying. Zhuowen's entry did not attract the attention of the practitioners strolling on the Street of Three Purities. Practitioners often went in and out of the Street of Three Purities, so they were not surprised that a practitioner had come in. Boom! Suddenly, the whole Street of Three Purities shook violently, and all the practitioners on the street looked surprised and doubtful. Zhuowen's face changed greatly. He knew that Bing Hui had probably smashed the entrance to the heaven accessing place. Otherwise, the street would not have been affected so much. Who is it? How dare you behave atrociously in the heaven accessing place? At the end of the Three Purities Street, within the vast Three Purities Palace, an old man radiating holy light rode out on a green ox. Taoist Three Purities? What the hell is going on? Even a major figure like Taoist Three Purities has been drawn out. It seems like the entrance to the secret realm was forcefully destroyed by someone. What? Who had the guts to destroy the entrance to the secret territory? Is this a provocation to the heaven accessing place? On the streets of the Three Purities, many cultivators were discussing animatedly, their eyes filled with indignation. At the same time, on the other side of the street, many foreign race experts were also alarmed. The first tower master of the Shaman Tower, Wu Taiji, also flew out of the Shaman Tower. His hair and beard were fluttering, and his eyes were spitting fire. Taoist Three Purities moved very quickly, instantly leaving Three Purities Street. As for the many human experts within Three Purities Street, they all followed him out of Three Purities Street. In the blink of an eye, Three Purities Street became much more deserted, with almost no cultivators left inside. Zhuowen stood next to a shop, his eyes flashing. He withdrew his clone into his major world, then summoned his true body out. His true body didn't have any of Pangu's aura, and he knew that his clone's aura had been locked onto by Bing Hui. As soon as his clone went out, Bing Hui would immediately recognize him. Even if he changed his appearance, it would be useless. However, if his true body went out, Zhuowen knew that Bing Hui wouldn't be able to recognize him. Zhuowen was dressed in white robes. He changed his appearance slightly, then took a single step out of Three Purities Street and arrived at the plaza from before. At this moment, the square was filled with cultivators. The Three Purities Street was filled with human cultivators, while the gate of the Chaos Street was filled with foreign cultivators. Taoist Three Purities hovered in midair atop his green ox, a horsetail whisk in his hand. Next to Taoist three purities was a beautiful woman with a graceful figure. She stood there quietly, her expression calm and cold. It was Lian Meng. Zhuowen gave Lian Meng a deep look. He discovered that Lian Meng's eyes were no longer as empty as they had been in the past. Instead, they were filled with life. It seemed that Lian Meng had recovered, but he didn't know if she still remembered him as her junior brother. When he thought of this, Zhuowen laughed bitterly in his heart. But soon, his gaze was drawn to a middle-aged man amongst the foreign cultivators. This middle-aged man was tall and sturdy. His skin was light purple, and he wore long purple robes. A powerful, intimidating aura emanated from him. From the discussions around him, Zhuowen learned that this middle-aged man was Wu Taiji, the head of the first tower of the Shaman Tower, the #1 power in Chaos Street. He was an unparalleled expert of the shaman race, and was no weaker than Taoist three purities. Zhuowen's gaze was grave. He knew that Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao, who had come down from the heaven-span secret realm to rebuild Shaman God City, had most likely been sent down by Wu Taiji. Thump thump thump. At that moment, the crisp sound of footsteps rang out in front of them, attracting everyone's attention. A figure slowly walked out from the shattered black gate. It was Bing Hui, who had been chasing Zhuowen. Bing Hui stopped and looked at the thousands of cultivators in the square. He frowned slightly. He hadn't expected there to be so many cultivators in the heaven-span secret realm, and none of them were weak. In fact, they were all very strong. This was especially true of the old man floating in the air on the blue ox and the middle-aged man in purple robes. Their auras were so powerful that even Bing Hui's expression changed slightly. There are actually 2 fifth blight cultivators in the lower realms. Bing Hui muttered to himself. His expression wasn't very good. Bing Hui wasn't the only one who felt troubled. Taoist three purities and Wu Taiji's expressions were grave as well. This was because they could both sense Bing Hui's terrifyingly powerful aura. They knew that the cultivator who had broken into the heaven-span secret realm was also a fifth blight cultivator. And for some unknown reason, Bing Hui gave them an even more dangerous feeling. They felt an unprecedented sense of crisis. Taoist three purities and Wu Taiji exchanged a glance at the same time. Their expressions were very solemn. They knew that this intruder's strength was extraordinary. Fellow Taoist, may I ask why you have broken into our heaven-span secret realm? Our heaven-span secret realm doesn't seem to have offended you, fellow Taoist. Taoist three purities was the first to speak. Wu Taiji said in a low voice, "Fellow Taoist, who are you? I know almost all of the experts in the lower realms, but I don't think you're familiar." Bing Hui calmed down, and a hint of pride appeared in his eyes. He said calmly, "It's normal that you don't know me. I am Bing Hui, a member of the alternate ghost clan in the 100 territories of the outer realms. I came to your lower realms to find my junior brother. However, my junior brother was seriously injured by someone. I wanted to avenge him, so I chased after that bastard. But I didn't think that bastard would be able to slip away and enter your heaven-span secret realm. I broke into your heaven-span secret realm to find someone." Chapter 3449. Power of 6 Paths of Samsara. The whole place was in an uproar. All the cultivators were shocked by Bing Hui's words. There were no weaklings among the practitioners in the heaven accessing place. All of them were once the top superiors in their respective heavenly domains. Moreover, they had lived in the heaven accessing place for so many years, so they knew more secrets than the Xianmi heavenly domain or the untainted heavenly domain. They knew that a brand new world would appear after transcending this starry sky. Only those who had broken through the heavens would have a chance of coming into contact with it. How could they not be shocked by the sudden appearance of this ice-armored man who claimed to be from beyond the starry sky? Even Taoist three purities and Wu Taiji were stunned. "Are you a cultivator from beyond the starry skies?" "As far as I know, The cultivators outside the starry sky should all be at the heaven-breaking realm. You? Wu Taiji revealed a puzzled expression and asked the question in his heart. Bing Hui sneered and said, "The starry sky regulations of your lower realm are not complete at all and have a strong repelling effect on heaven-breaking realm cultivators. I had to sever my own cultivation in order to barely enter the starry skies of your lower realms. Although my cultivation level has dropped to the shattering heaven tier, my Tao presence is much stronger than yours. If you were to battle with me, I'd be able to defeat you within 10 moves." Bing Hui was very proud. He looked at Wu Taiji provocatively. He came from beyond the starry sky and regarded the starry sky creatures of the lower realms as natives. He had a sense of superiority that was difficult to conceal in his heart. Even though Wu Taiji and Taoist Three Purities were both Fifth Blight experts, he didn't fear them. At most, they would be a bit troublesome to deal with. Wu Taiji's face was gloomy. Being provoked by Bing Hui like this, he felt a little embarrassed. However, Wu Taiji didn't attack. He could feel that although Bing Hui was only at the Fifth Blight, he gave him a strong sense of danger. He had never felt such a sense of danger from Taoist Three Purities. He was certain that if he were to fight this man, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. However, Wu Taiji was not convinced. He felt that Bing Hui was underestimating him. He did not believe that Bing Hui could defeat him within 10 moves. "How can you prove that you came from beyond the starry skies?" Taoist Three Purities finally spoke up. Taoist Three Purities was clearly much calmer than Wu Taiji. His face had been terrifyingly calm this entire time. Moreover, Zhuowen, who was hidden among the crowd, always felt that the Three Pure Ones' gazes would occasionally sweep in his direction. This caused Zhuowen to feel a little apprehensive. Could it be that the Three Pure Ones had recognized him? Bing Hui glanced at the Three Purities indifferently and said, "I came down here merely to search for people. I'm not here to be interrogated by you. If you insist on obstructing me, we'll just fight." As he spoke, Bing Hui's aura became more and more turbulent. It was like a tidal wave that suddenly exploded from the square. It was as if countless mountains had fallen on him, causing the atmosphere in the square to become extremely solemn. Many cultivators let out muffled groans and retreated one after another. Their faces were incomparably pale as they couldn't bear the impact of Bing Hui's terrifying aura. The faces of Taoist Three Purities and Wu Taiji both flickered slightly. They unleashed their powerful auras in an attempt to block Isechui's aura. However, what caused their faces to turn ugly was that they could only barely block Bing Hui's terrifying aura. This was inconceivable to them. Bing Hui was also at the Fifth Heaven's Blight, so how could he be so ridiculously powerful? Moreover, Bing Hui's aura carried with it a terrifying shattering aura. When their auras came into contact with it, they immediately crumbled apart and completely disintegrated. This was the first time they had seen such a strange aura. "You actually managed to block it. The two of you aren't bad. If I hadn't reached the Heaven Breaker realm in the past, I probably wouldn't have been a match for the two of you by myself. Unfortunately, I was once a Heaven Breaker realm cultivator. Although I severed my cultivation, a portion of the Heaven Breaker realm's shattering divine power still remains in my body. In front of my shattering divine power, the power of the heavenly Tao is nothing more than a joke. To me, it's nothing more than clay chickens and pottery dogs." Bing Hui sneered. His aura skyrocketed again, and a terrifying cold chi swept out, instantly freezing the square into a world of ice and snow. The faces of Taoist Three Purities and Wu Taiji finally changed. They could clearly sense that Bing Hui's power wasn't much stronger than theirs. The only difference was that Bing Hui had a special and powerful energy on him. In terms of level, this energy was far superior to the energy of the heavenly Tao. Bing Hui relied on this energy to completely suppress the two of them. This person might really be an expert from beyond the starry sky. Wu Taiji's eyes were solemn. He barely managed to resist. He looked at Taoist three purities and said in a deep voice, "Taoist three purities, the energy this person controls far surpasses the energy of the heavenly Tao that we control. Even if we join forces, I'm afraid we won't be a match for him." Taoist three purities' eyes were gloomy. He said coldly, "Wu Taiji, what do you mean? Are you going to surrender?" Wu Taiji sneered. "Surrender? That's not my style. This person isn't hostile to us. He only broke into the heaven accessing place to look for someone. We can let him look for that person. When he finds that person, he'll naturally leave." The heaven accessing place is the only place under the starry sky where the energy of the heavenly Tao is the richest. It can be considered a paradise in the starry sky. If we fight with this guy, the heaven accessing place is likely to collapse. That won't do us any good. Handing over a person in exchange for the safety of the heaven accessing place. Why not? Taoist three purities' eyes were gloomy. He said coldly, "The practitioners in the heaven accessing place are all our companions. How can we hand over our companions?" Wu Taiji laughed. His laughter was full of sarcasm. "Taoist three purities, you're still the same. You're a hypocrite, but you still want a monument to your chastity. If you don't want to hand her over, then fight with this fellow Taoist. I won't keep you company." Saying this, Wu Taiji cupped his hands at Bing Hui and immediately retreated. Seeing that Wu Taiji was so tactful, Bing Hui nodded and withdrew his qi. Instead, he focused all his qi on Taoist three purities. Instantly, the pressure on Taoist three purities increased sharply. He could no longer maintain the calm look on his face. His face turned pale and cold sweat beaded on his forehead. His sage-like image was destroyed. Many practitioners of the human clan on Taoist three purities street looked worriedly at Taoist three purities, who was gradually losing under Bing Hui's qi. Just as Bing Hui was about to completely suppress Taoist three purities, Lian Meng, who was standing beside Taoist three purities, emitted brilliant light from her eyes. A gate of reincarnation formed in front of Taoist three purities, forcibly reversing the terrible qi. Puff. Chapter 3450. Extreme Purple Spiritual Method. The Power of Six Paths of Reincarnation? Bing Hui found that his momentum had been reversed. He couldn't help but look at the unconscious Lian Meng and ponder. If he was right, the power of six paths of reincarnation was one of the abilities of the Panga clan. He didn't expect this little girl to know it too. However, Bing Hui used his divine thought to check Lian Meng carefully. He didn't find any obvious aura of the Panga clan on her, so he was relieved. Although Lian Meng was formed by a part of Pan Yu's essence blood, it was too thin. It was normal that Bing Hui couldn't find it. The three pure ones were formed by Pan Yu's primordial spirit. Later, he reconstructed his body. It was impossible for him to have the essence blood of the Panga clan, so Bing Hui couldn't associate him with the three pure ones. On the other hand, Zhuowen had inherited the venomous insects of the 12 ancestors of sorcery and practiced the Pangu sacred body. He had a strong Pangu bloodline. Bing Hui could tell at a glance. "Old man, you've got a good disciple. She has the body of six paths of reincarnation. But let's see if you can resist this time." Bing Hui sneered. He was about to attack again when the three pure ones suddenly said, "Fellow cultivator, please wait. We have no grudge against each other. Why do you have to fight? Of course, if you want to die with me, I have no objection. The heaven accessing place contains the will of the starry sky. If the will of the starry sky explodes, no matter how strong you are, you won't be able to survive." Bing Hui's expression changed. He knew about the will of the starry sky. It was the most horrible thing in the starry sky fruit. If the will of the starry sky exploded, its power would be terrible. Even a heaven-breaking realm expert might die if he was affected. "Three pure ones. How dare you?" Wu Taiji was also anxious. The will of the starry sky was the heaven-accessing place's final trump card. It couldn't be used casually. After all, once it was used, not only would the heaven-accessing place collapse, but they would also die. Bing Hui was angry, but he soon calmed down and said, "Fellow cultivator, I didn't mean to offend you. As I said, I'm just looking for someone. Once I find that person, I'll leave immediately." Bing Hui was very afraid of the will of the starry sky, so he was very polite now. He did not dare to provoke the three pure ones. "Does fellow Taoist have a portrait of the person you're looking for? Maybe I know him." Wu Taiji spoke, speaking warmly to Bing Hui. He had already determined that Bing Hui came from beyond the starry skies and was once a heaven-breaking tier elite. He wanted to establish a good relationship with him. Perhaps in the future, he would be able to borrow Bing Hui's help. Even if he couldn't break through to the heaven-crushing tier, he would still be able to enter the 100 realms of the outer realm. He knew that the energy level of the 100 outer territories was very high. It was far from what the space they were in could compare with. If he could enter the 100 outer realms to cultivate with his talent, he might be able to successfully break through the heavens in a short period of time. Moreover, the 100 domains outside the realm had many cultivation methods and secret techniques that surpassed Tao validation. If he could master such powerful cultivation methods and secret techniques in advance, even if he couldn't break through, his strength would definitely skyrocket. At that time, he would be able to suppress the three pure ones. Sanqing's eyes flashed. He nodded slightly but didn't say anything. Clearly, he agreed with Wu Taiji. Bing Hui smiled and landed on the ground. He waved his sleeve and a figure appeared in the air. This figure was revealed to be a middle-aged man with a rather ferocious face. The people in the square couldn't help but look at the image. Then, they all looked puzzled. Obviously, they didn't know this person. This fierce-looking middle-aged man was Zhuowen in disguise. Wu Taiji frowned slightly. He had never seen the middle-aged man in the image before. Since this person was chased by an elite like Bing Hui, he was probably a half-step heaven-breaking tier elite. Could it be that he also came from beyond the starry skies? This person's name is Zhuowen. This should be his disguise. I haven't seen his real appearance, but I recognize his aura. As long as you gather everyone in the heaven-accessing territory and let me search, I will be able to find him, Bing Hui said confidently. Naturally, he had learned Zhuowen's name from Sakyamuni. What? It's Zhuowen? I remember that Zhuowen was a junior in the Xianmi heavenly territory. How could he have offended such an elite? When Bing Hui said Zhuowen's name, the people on the Three Purities Street were in an uproar. The people on the Chaotic Street were also talking about it. Wu Taiji, the first tower master of the Wizard Tower, looked gloomy. Zhuowen was too familiar with this person. He was the one who destroyed Wizard God City and almost wiped out the wizard tribe in the untainted heavenly territory. At that time, Zhuowen used the alias Long One. Although the rumor said that Long One had self-exploded and died, Wu Taiji still ordered people to investigate Long Wen's background. He knew that Long Wen's real name was Zhuowen and that he was a genius of the human tribe. Although he had found out Zhuowen's identity, Wu Taiji did not take it to heart. He also thought that Zhuowen had self-exploded and died. He naturally did not care about the dead. However, now that he heard the name Zhuowen from Bing Hui, Wu Taiji immediately thought of Long One. He suspected that the Zhuowen that Bing Hui mentioned was the same person as the Long One that he had investigated. On the human tribe's side, Three Purities had put the unconscious Lian Meng on the green ox. He also heard Bing Hui's words and could not help but look at Zhuowen. At this moment, Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. He had noticed Three Purities' actions and was sure that they had recognized him. Zhuowen's body was tense. He had always thought that Three Purities had ulterior motives towards him. Now that Bing Hui was looking for him and Three Purities had recognized him, Zhuowen was not sure if 3 purities would expose him. It seems that you know Zhuowen? Since that's the case, I'll take the initiative to hand it over. If one of you gives it to me, I can give him this purple extreme spiritual technique. The purple extreme spiritual technique is a primary heaven-crushing technique. Cultivating this technique will allow you to evolve quickly, and it will be much easier for you to reach the heaven-crushing stage. Bing Hui took out a book. The cover of this book was golden and shone with golden light. The words, Purple Extreme Spiritual Technique, were written on the cover. The moment Bing Hui took out the Purple Extreme Spiritual Technique, everyone's breathing quickened. In the heaven-accessing secret realm, there was almost nothing lacking. The only thing missing was a technique that could allow one to reach the heaven-crushing stage. With a technique of this level, one would not need to comprehend the heavenly Tao and reach the heaven-crushing stage on their own. It would save them a lot of trouble. Even 3 purities had inherited Pan Yu's primordial spirit and part of Pan Yu's memories. However, the memories were too incomplete. Although Pan Yu also cultivated a heaven-crushing technique, it was too incomplete. As a result, 3 purities could only comprehend it but could not cultivate it. From this, one could see how precious the heaven-crushing technique was. 3 purities and Wu Taiji had already cultivated to the highest level in this starry sky. If they wanted to advance further, they would have to comprehend it on their own. That would take a long time. As long as they could obtain such a heaven-crushing technique, their chances of reaching the heaven-crushing stage would be very high. Chapter 34:51. Search. When Zhuowen saw Bing Hui take out the extreme purple spirit art, his face turned even uglier. He knew that things weren't going well. He didn't expect that Bing Hui would be so generous as to take out a heaven-breaking cultivation method just to find him. It seemed that he had underestimated how much Bing Hui valued the Pangu clan. Zhuowen's eyes fell on 3 pure ones. He was nervous because he knew that 3 pure ones had recognized him and were in need of a heaven-breaking cultivation method. He was really nervous that 3 pure ones would identify him directly. First, gather all the practitioners in your heaven-accessing place. If I'm satisfied with your performance, I'll give the purple extreme spiritual method to you. Bing Hui's eyes were full of arrogance. He treated himself as a superior and spoke in a commanding tone. However, Wu Taiji and 3 pure ones weren't angry. They focused all their attention on the purple ultimate spiritual method. It was a heaven-breaking cultivation method that could help them break the heavens. In this part of the starry sky, it was the only one of its kind. It was a supreme treasure that countless experts would fight to the death for. It was a treasure that even Wu Taiji and 3 pure ones couldn't ignore. Wu Taiji was very active. He said quickly, "Fellow Taoist, Zhuowen is from the human tribe. If you want to find him, you have to search in 3 pure streets. Since that guy has entered the heaven-accessing place, he can't escape." As he spoke, Wu Taiji ordered several powerful alien tribe members to guard the broken entrance of the secret realm. Seeing this, Zhuowen cursed Wu Taiji's shamelessness. He knew that Wu Taiji had sent people to block the entrance of the secret realm in advance to prevent him from escaping. 3 pure ones stood in front of 3 pure streets and fell into silence. He didn't look at Zhuowen anymore. He seemed to be thinking about something. Oh? Is he from 3 pure streets? Can I enter 3 pure streets and search? If I can find the person I'm looking for, this purple ultimate spiritual method is yours. Bing Hui looked at 3 pure ones and said. He could tell that the 3 purities were the leaders of the 3 purities street. If he wanted to enter the 3 purities street, he had to get the approval of this person. If Bing Hui wasn't worried about the starry sky will, he wouldn't have asked for the 3 pure ones' opinion. He would have rushed into the 3 pure ones street and searched for Zhuowen. Bing Hui had already scanned all the cultivators in the square with his spiritual sense, but he didn't sense any Pangu bloodline. He knew that Zhuowen, whom he was looking for, wasn't in this group. He now wanted to enter the Three Purities Street to explore. He knew that Zhuowen was definitely hiding here. With his spiritual will, Zhuowen had nowhere to hide. Hearing Bing Hui's words, Wu Taiji's expression changed slightly. He wanted to say something, but after opening his mouth, he remained silent. He was a little annoyed. Wu Taiji knew that if the Three Pure Ones obtained the Purple Extreme Spirit Technique, then there was a very high chance that the Three Pure Ones would break through to the heaven-crushing tier. At that time, he would be completely left in the dust, and wouldn't be able to compete with the Three Pure Ones. Now Wu Taiji was praying in his heart that Zhuowen had slipped away or was hiding in some secret place so that Bing Hui could not find him. The Three Pure Ones were silent for a moment. They glanced at Bing Hui and nodded. "Fellow cultivator, go ahead and search the Three Purities Street." Hearing the Three Pure Ones' words, Zhuowen, who was in the crowd, revealed a strange expression. He didn't expect the Three Pure Ones to not expose him. Was he not interested in the Purple Extreme Spirit Technique? Good, good, good. A wise man submits to circumstances. If I can find Zhuowen, I will definitely fulfill my promise and give you the Purple Extreme Spirit Technique. Bing Hui nodded and stepped into the Three Purities Street. About an hour later, Bing Hui re-emerged from the Three Purities Street, but his expression was very gloomy. The Three Pure Ones stepped forward and asked in confusion, "Fellow cultivator, how was it? Did you find the person you were looking for?" Bing Hui's expression darkened and he said coldly, "No, I searched the entire Three Purities Street, but I couldn't sense Zhuowen's aura. What is going on?" The Three Pure Ones looked disappointed and sighed. "Sigh, you didn't find him? What a pity." Saying this, the Three Pure Ones looked at the golden manual in Bing Hui's hand, and his eyes were full of disappointment. Bing Hui naturally saw the Three Pure Ones' little movements. He said coldly, "What? Do you really want the extreme purple spiritual art in my hands? Unfortunately, I didn't find the person I was looking for in the Three Purities Street. You don't have the right to have it." Wu Taiji sighed. He felt lucky that he didn't find the person he was looking for. Otherwise, it would be really troublesome. He and the Three Pure Ones were on opposing sides, and they had been fighting for so many years. Although he was often suppressed by the Three Pure Ones, it was not to the extent that he was completely crushed. However, if the Three Pure Ones were to break the heavens and earth earlier, Wu Taiji's status would be gone, and he might even lose his life. The Three Pure Ones were very regretful, but they did not mention the Purple Extreme Spirit Technique to Bing Hui. Bing Hui frowned slightly, and his eyes fell on Wu Taiji. He said, "Is the person I'm looking for hiding in the chaotic street?" Wu Taiji was very sensible. He quickly said, "Fellow Taoist, go ahead and search in the chaotic street. If you can find the person you're looking for, what about the Purple Extreme Spirit Technique?" "Of course," Bing Hui said indifferently. Hearing this, Wu Taiji was so excited that his body trembled. He quickly invited Bing Hui into the chaotic street. Bing Hui naturally wouldn't be polite to Wu Taiji. However, to Wu Taiji's disappointment, Bing Hui soon came out alone. He knew that Bing Hui didn't find the person he was looking for in the chaotic street. Bing Hui's face was gloomy, and he was a little irritated. Zhuowen seemed to have disappeared into thin air. He had clearly locked onto Zhuowen's spirit. As long as Zhuowen was still in the heaven accessing place, he would be able to sense him. However, he was disappointed that he couldn't find any trace of Zhuowen's spirit. It was as if Zhuowen had vanished into thin air. In the crowd, Zhuowen saw Bing Hui's expression and felt relieved. He was glad that his macro world was magical. His doppelganger's spirit was indeed locked onto by Bing Hui. If his doppelganger was here, Bing Hui would be able to sense it immediately. Fortunately, his macro world had completely concealed his doppelganger's spirit. Even Bing Hui couldn't detect any abnormalities. Bing Hui's eyes were gloomy. He glanced at the people in the heaven accessing place and felt helpless. Given his character, he would have already destroyed the heaven accessing place if it was any other time. He would rather kill 3,000 innocents than let one person go. However, the heaven accessing place contained the will of the starry sky, which he couldn't resist. If these people were really crazy and blew up the will of the starry sky, he would definitely die. Chapter 34:52. Goodbye to the three pure ones. Thinking of this, Bing Hui didn't attack the heaven accessing place. However, he was unwilling to leave just like that. He had accidentally found a descendant of the Pangu clan. If he could capture him alive and bring him to the Ice Demon King, it would be a great merit. Even if he brought the corpse back, the Ice Demon King would still reward him according to his merit. He didn't want to miss such an opportunity. That was why he was willing to use the Purple Extreme Spiritual Technique to capture Zhuowen. The Purple Extreme Spiritual Technique was a supreme secret method in the lower world. However, in the 100 territories outside the world, it was only the most basic heaven-breaking level cultivation method. For Bing Hui, the Purple Extreme Spiritual Technique was only average. However, if he could find the descendant of the Pangu clan and bring him to the Ice Demon King, the reward would be much higher than the Purple Extreme Spiritual Technique. This was an absolutely profitable deal. However, he couldn't find Zhuowen. This made him unhappy and irritated, but there was nothing he could do. Moreover, the Ice Demon King had told him to bring Sakyamuni back as soon as possible. He couldn't stay in the lower world for long. Thinking of this, Bing Hui took out 2 blue talismans and gave them to the 3 pure ones and Wu Taiji. Fellow Taoists, if the 2 of you can find Zhuowen and inform me immediately, then help me capture him, then the Purple Extreme Spiritual Arts will belong to whoever is in charge. In the future, if you break through the starry sky, I can recruit you into the foreign ghost clan's domain in advance. I can guarantee your safety in advance. Bing Hui looked at the 3 pure ones and Wu Taiji and said solemnly. 3 purities and Wu Taiji nodded and put away the talismans that Bing Hui gave them. I'll see you 2 again. Bing Hui bade farewell and took out a snow-white talisman. He crushed it, and a powerful reverse teleportation force came, and Bing Hui disappeared from where he stood. The 3 pure ones and Wu Taiji looked at the dispersing teleportation power with serious faces. They could feel that the place where Bing Hui was teleported to was probably beyond the starry sky, because the teleportation energy was too mysterious. Even a transcending heaven-grade teleportation array could not produce such a mysterious teleportation power. This was definitely a teleportation talisman that surpassed the transcending heaven grade. Inform all the races in the prehistoric heaven realm to arrest that Zhuowen. Of course, this bastard has another name, Long One. I really didn't think that this kid would still be alive. He really tricked me. Wu Taiji ordered his subordinates to put all their efforts into hunting down Zhuowen, and arranged for 2 powerful experts at the peak of the sky-piercing realm to guard the entrance of the secret realm. Once someone entered and exited the heaven accessing place, they must be strictly checked to prevent anyone from fishing in troubled waters. 3 purities didn't say anything. Instead, he led the human cultivators back to 3 Purities Street. Zhuowen didn't plan to return to 3 Purities Street. After all, 3 Purities had also received Ku Binghui's communication talisman. Although 3 Purities hadn't reported him before, people's hearts were unpredictable. For the sake of the Purple Ultimate Spiritual Method, Zhuowen wasn't sure whether 3 Purities would change their minds and secretly pass on his information to Bing Hui. But now the entrance of the secret realm was completely controlled by the experts on Primitive Street. If he left the heaven accessing place immediately, he would be suspected. As long as they weren't fools, they would know that there was something wrong with him. At that time, Wu Taiji would immediately capture him. His strength was still too weak. He was no match for Wu Taiji and 3 Purities, who were at the 5th blight. If he exposed his identity now, it would do him more harm than good. At that time, his situation would become very bad. Thinking of this, Zhuowen sighed slightly. He had to follow the human cultivators back to 3 Purities Street. After entering 3 Purities Street, 3 Purities carried the unconscious Lian Meng and rode the green ox back to 3 Purities Palace. As soon as Zhuowen entered 3 Purities Street, 3 Purities old and vicissitudes of life sounded in his mind. Zhuowen, come to 3 Purities Palace. I have something to tell you. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone about you. Zhuowen's body stiffened. In the end, he sighed softly and flew along the street toward 3 Purities Palace. On the street there were many cultivators who flew like Zhuowen. Some of them directly took out their flying divine devices and rushed into the depths of 3 Purities Street. That was the gathering area of cave residences on 3 Purities Street. Many of the cultivators' cave residences were located in the depths of the street near 3 Purities Palace. When Zhuowen arrived at the end of the street, he realized that there was a towering mountain in front of him. The palace of 3 Purities was located at the peak of the mountain. Because the color of the mountain was almost the same as the starry sky, Zhuowen thought that 3 Purities Palace was floating in the air when he looked at it from afar. Now that he saw it, he knew that it wasn't the case. In this mountain there were many cave residences. The cultivators who came here by flying divine devices all entered their own cave residences and began to practice in seclusion. The life of the cultivators in the heaven-accessing secret land was monotonous and boring. They practiced day after day. They would not come out unless there was something important or they needed to buy the magic elixirs needed for practice. This time, the entrance to the secret land was broken, which woke up many of the cultivators who were practicing in seclusion. Now that the matter was solved, these cultivators naturally went back to practice in seclusion. Zhuowen did not pay attention to the cultivators who were practicing in seclusion. Instead, he flew straight to the top of the mountain. Zhuowen's behavior soon attracted the attention of many cultivators. When they found that Zhuowen was going to 3 Purities Palace on the top of the mountain, their expressions were very interesting. What is this guy going to do? Is he going to break into 3 Purities Palace? Not necessarily. Maybe he is a guest of 3 Purities. This guy looks unfamiliar. I don't remember any guest of 3 Purities having such a face. Many cultivators at the foot of the mountain were talking about it. They watched Zhuowen rush to 3 Purities Palace. 3 Purities Palace was very magnificent. It didn't look like much from a distance, but when one got close, one would only feel that it was magnificent and magnificent. It was surrounded by fairy chi and red-crowned cranes were flying. It was like a fairyland. Suddenly, a red-crowned crane landed in front of Zhuowen and spoke. "My fellow cultivator, please come with me. 3 Purities are waiting for you in the inner room." The voice of the red-crowned crane turned out to be a crisp female voice, very pleasant to the ear. Zhuowen nodded. Then, the red-crowned crane led Zhuowen into the depths of 3 Purities Palace. There were many guards and servants in 3 Purities Palace, but they were all very quiet and did not feel noisy at all. Soon, the red-crowned crane led Zhuowen to a garden courtyard. Surrounded by rockery, there was a rather quaint pavilion. 3 Purities was sitting cross-legged in the pavilion, looking at Zhuowen with a smile. In front of him was a sparkling and translucent jade table, emitting a sparkling white light. Even the wine pot and wine cups on the jade table were made of jade. There were 2 wine cups on the table, and 3 Purities was sitting facing Zhuowen. Chapter 34-53. The chaotic starry sky. Zhuowen sat down and looked at the benevolent-looking old man with a warm smile on his face with a complicated expression. From the moment the Great Pure One took him in as a disciple, Zhuowen realized that he had never understood the old man in front of him. When the Great Pure One recovered, the 3 Purities merged into one and left the 8 heavens as Taoist 3 Purities. Zhuowen knew even less about the 3 Purities. He couldn't see through the old man in front of him. It had to be said that after the three purities merged into one, Taoist three purities cultivation recovered very quickly. Unknowingly, he already had the strength of a fifth blight expert and became one of the leaders of the heaven-accessing realm. Zhuowen, my good disciple, I really didn't expect that after not seeing you for so many years, you could achieve so much. I'm proud of you. The corners of the three purities' mouth curled into a warm smile. He poured a cup of wine for Zhuowen. His actions were very natural, as if the person in front of him was really his disciple. How is junior sister Lian Meng? Zhuowen asked with a slightly angry tone. The three purities smiled and said, Lian Meng is fine. She just fainted. Using the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation to resist the attack of a fifth blight expert is indeed a bit difficult. You're using her as a tool? Zhuowen's face was gloomy and his tone was somewhat fierce. The three purities' eyes became serious and he said, Zhuowen, you don't understand. I'm training Lian Meng. She will play a crucial role in resisting the chaos in the future. Now there isn't much time left. She must quickly become stronger. A flower that grows in a greenhouse will never be as tough as a grass that is exposed to the wind and rain outside. Only by using the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation can Lian Meng continue to become stronger. Only in this way can she help me in the future. Zhuowen calmed down and didn't say anything. He knew that his point of view was different from the three purities. No matter what he said, the two of them couldn't agree on Lian Meng. However, Zhuowen knew that the three purities were formed from the wandering primordial spirit. He had a deep hatred for the chaos in the starry sky, and wanted to get rid of it quickly. Whether it was Lian Meng or Zhuowen cultivating the Panga sacred body, it could be said that it was the three purities. After all, it was the three purities' immortal Emperor Jingrong that allowed him to successfully cultivate the Pangu sacred body. Just now, you had the chance to obtain the extreme purple spirit art. Why didn't you expose me? Zhuowen calmed down and began to ask the three purities about Ice Hui. The three purities chuckled and said, Purple extreme spiritual art? Hee, although this is a heaven-breaching technique, it can only be considered the most basic entry-level technique in the outer realms. Is heaven sky? San Qing took out the blue talisman that Bing Hui had given him and destroyed it right in front of Zhuo Wen's eyes. Zhuo Wen was moved. He looked deeply at the three pure ones. He hadn't expected that the three pure ones would destroy Bing Hui's communication talisman right in front of him. Why? Zhuowen asked in confusion. You and I come from the same origin. We have the responsibility to support this starry sky together. You may not know, but Bing Hui came from the other ghost clan in the 100 Domains. The other ghost clan is one of the culprits who killed the Panga clan. You and I, strictly speaking, can be considered members of the Panga clan. Although I don't have the bloodline of the Panga clan, I inherited Pan Yu's primordial spirit and part of his memories. I know the Panga clan very well. Therefore, you and I are born to be on the same side. In the future, we will have to shoulder the heavy responsibility of reviving the Panga clan. This is the will left behind by Pan Yu when he died. It is also our responsibility. The three purities paused and looked at Zhuowen. He said, This should be your human true body, right? Have you put away your doppelganger? Can you let me see what level your doppelganger has reached? Zhuowen did not refuse and summoned his doppelganger. The doppelganger was dressed in black. Its face was exactly the same as the original body. The doppelganger's disguise had been removed, and its original appearance had been restored. The three purities looked at the doppelganger carefully and could not help but exclaim, I didn't expect you to have cultivated the Pangu sacred body to the peak of the 8 stars. It's really incredible. With your current combat strength, I'm afraid that the peak Master Tongtian is no longer your opponent. You can fight against a first blight expert. The three purities surrounded the doppelganger and clicked their tongues in amazement. Their eyes were bursting with excitement. Zhuowen was a little scared. Why did he feel that the three purities were looking at him in a strange way? The three purities returned to his seat and asked, "How many venomous worms have you integrated?" 8 of them have fused. Zhuowen said. 4 more. As long as you integrate the rest of the venomous worms, your Pangu sacred body will be completed completely. At that time, your combat strength will be comparable to a peak 5th blight expert. In this starry sky, there won't be many opponents who can compete with you. The three purities' eyes were shining. He looked at Zhuowen and continued, "Zhuowen, the Black King told you before, right? The rest of the venomous worms are actually in the heaven accessing place." Zhuowen nodded. When he had just returned to the Xianmi heavenly territory from the untainted heavenly territory, the Black King stopped him halfway and brought him information about the three purities and the rest of the venomous worms. "Do you know where the rest of the venomous worms are?" Zhuowen asked, his eyes shining. The three purities nodded and said, "It's your first time in the heaven accessing place, so you don't know much about it. The heaven accessing place doesn't look big on the surface, but it's much bigger than the Xianmi heavenly territory and the untainted heavenly territory. The void in the heaven accessing place is not an ordinary starry sky, but a chaotic starry sky. Except for the three purities street and the untainted street, the rest of the heaven accessing place is basically a chaotic starry sky. It's just that the chaotic starry sky has been separated by our supreme formation and power." Zhuowen was confused. It was the first time he had heard about the chaotic starry sky. He couldn't help but ask, "What's the chaotic starry sky?" The three purities patiently explained to Zhuowen, "The so-called chaotic starry sky is actually the real starry sky. You should have heard what Bing Hui said before. He said that we belong to the lower world starry sky, and the starry sky rules are incomplete. The chaotic starry sky is above the lower world starry sky, and the starry sky rules are complete. Only the practitioners who practice in the chaotic starry sky can reach the heaven-breaking realm. Without the complete starry sky rules, even if you have the heaven-breaking cultivation method, you can't reach the heaven-breaking realm." Chapter 3454. Narrate. Zhuowen nodded. He now understood why so many experts of the sky-reaching realm could gather in the sky-reaching secret land. Even the practitioners of the human clan and the experts of foreign clans from the untainted heavenly realm could coexist peacefully here. All of this was because the sky-reaching secret land was connected to the chaotic starry sky and had complete starry sky rules that the outside world did not have. Why is there a chaotic starry sky in the sky-reaching secret land? Where does the chaotic starry sky come from? Zhuowen was surprised and asked in confusion. The chaotic starry sky is outside the starry sky of the lower world. That is, the place where the 100 territories are located. The sky-reaching secret land is a passage to the outside world. Three Pure One's eyes were solemn as he explained the nature of the sky-reaching secret land. It was actually a passage to the outside world. Zhuowen's pupils shrank slightly. He had not expected the nature of the sky-reaching secret land to be like this. Didn't that mean that as long as one went along the sky-reaching secret land and entered the depths, one would be able to enter the 100 territories? However, what Three Pure Ones said next shattered Zhuowen's fantasy. He told Zhuowen that the energy contained in the chaotic starry sky was too powerful. Even if a half-step heaven-breaking expert entered the depths of the chaotic starry sky, he would not be able to withstand the pressure of the chaotic starry sky. His body would collapse and his divine soul would be annihilated. Although heaven-breaking experts could enter the chaotic starry sky without being affected too much, it was basically impossible for them to travel the chaotic starry sky completely. In the chaotic starry sky they could only move slowly. The only experts who could truly travel the chaotic starry sky without the help of any tools were the great carefree realm experts. Such experts were legendary existences above the heaven-breaking realm and were basically impossible to see. Of course, if one had a great carefree realm spaceship, even if one was not a great carefree realm expert, he could still travel the chaotic starry sky. The reason why Bing Hui could arrive at the primordial tree so quickly from the 100 territories to the lower world where Zhuowen was mainly because of the Ice Demon King. If the Ice Fiend Monarch hadn't used a great ability to teleport Bing Hui to the primordial chaos tree, Bing Hui wouldn't have been able to enter the lower realm so quickly. At the same time, the three Pure Ones also told Zhuowen that the heaven accessing place was the closest place to the chaotic starry sky. It could be said that it was the border between the starry sky of the mortal world and the chaotic starry sky. The pressure in the chaotic starry sky within the heaven accessing place would not be so terrible. Even experts of the sky-reaching realm could enter the chaotic starry sky to practice and explore. Of course, even if the pressure of the chaotic starry sky in the heaven accessing place was weakened a lot, experts of the heaven accessing realm could not stay there for too long. Otherwise, they might die. Half-step heaven-crushing cultivators, on the other hand, could cultivate in the chaotic cosmos for a long time. Fifth Blight cultivators like Wu Taiji and the three Pure Ones could stay in the chaotic cosmos of the heaven-accessing secret realm forever. Zhuowen also learned from San Qing that there were many opportunities in the primal chaos cosmos because there were just too many supreme experts in the primal chaos cosmos. Over countless years, countless experts had perished in the primal chaos cosmos, their whereabouts unknown. Therefore, in the chaotic starry sky, there were always some powerful divine weapons or cultivation methods that would float into the chaotic starry sky of the heaven accessing place. Moreover, the divine weapons or cultivation methods that floated in were at least of the sky-reaching level. Although there were heaven-breaking divine weapons and cultivation methods, they were all incomplete. They were left behind after a great war. The three Pure Ones had once obtained a fragment of a heaven-breaking divine weapon. Even a fragment was much more powerful than a half-step heaven-crushing divine weapon. It could easily destroy a half-step heaven-crushing divine weapon. Wu Taiji was fortunate enough to obtain an incomplete heaven-breaker cultivation method. Although it was severely incomplete, Wu Taiji relied on this incomplete cultivation method to reach the fifth heaven's blight from the peak of the fourth heaven's blight, catching up to the three Pure Ones who had always been above him. Many other practitioners in the heaven accessing place had more or less gained from exploring the chaotic cosmos. However, their gains were not as great as the three Pure Ones and Wu Taiji's. Heaven-breaking cultivation methods and divine weapons were too rare. Even if they were incomplete, they were priceless. You mean, the rest of the ancient sorcery poisonous insects are in the chaotic cosmos? Zhuowen asked. Yes, I once sensed the aura of an ancestral shaman parasite, but it was like a fish in water in the chaotic starry sky, and its speed was even faster than mine. So, I quickly lost track of it. Your body has merged with other ancient sorcery poisonous insects, so you should have a special sense for them. I think it's best for you to enter the chaotic cosmos to search for them, the three Pure Ones said calmly. In the next few days, the three Pure Ones arranged a quiet courtyard for Zhuowen in the Three Pure Palace. Zhuowen had been in seclusion in the courtyard. His injuries had not completely healed. He spent the past few days healing himself and studying the true record of elixir arrays. The Three Pure Ones had originally intended to announce that Zhuowen would enter the Three Pure Palace as his disciple. However, Zhuowen refused. Zhuowen had completely broken off his master-disciple relationship with the Three Pure Ones. He had never thought that he would restore his relationship with the Three Pure Ones. The Three Pure Ones just smiled and did not mention this matter again. During this period of healing, Zhuowen had a deep understanding of the heaven accessing place. There were two streets in the heaven accessing place. They were the Three Pure Ones Street and the Chaotic Street. They were the gathering places for practitioners of the human clan and the alien clan. They were also the places for practitioners to practice and rest. Outside the two streets was the chaotic cosmos. The Three Pure Ones Street and the Chaotic Street each had a passage leading to the chaotic cosmos. Although the practitioners of the human clan and the alien clan seemed to get along peacefully in the Three Pure Ones Street and the Chaotic Street, once they entered the chaotic cosmos, conflicts would arise between them. There would even be practitioners who would fight with each other if they did not agree with each other. Often, there would be many casualties. This was the rule of the heaven accessing place. Private fights were not allowed on the street. However, once they entered the chaotic cosmos, there were not so many restrictions. Fights were inevitable. Of course, fights were not limited to the human clan and the alien clan. The human clan and the alien clan, as well as the alien clan and the alien clan, would often fight with each other because of opportunities. It could be said that in the chaotic cosmos, except for yourself, everyone was your enemy. What annoyed Zhuowen the most was that the gate to the secret land had been rebuilt. However, Wu Taiji, the first tower master of the Wizard Tower, still sent two experts at the peak of the heaven-reaching master of the Wizard clan to guard the gate and strictly check the practitioners of the human clan who entered and left the entrance. The Three Pure Ones had tried to stop Wu Taiji. Unfortunately, Wu Taiji did not listen to them. In the end, they parted on bad terms and were in a deadlock. Chapter 3455. Three Purities Palace. An incomparably vast and towering tree stood towering in the chaotic starry sky. This tree was called the primeval primordial tree. It had existed since time immemorial and nurtured countless fruits and living beings. There was a small starry sky fruit near the roots of the primeval primordial tree. At this moment, two figures were floating around the starry sky fruit. There was a blue barrier of flowing light around these two figures, and it helped them resist the terrifying pressure crushing down from the chaotic starry sky. These two people were Bing Hui and Sakyamuni of the Variant Ghost Clan. The teleportation talisman that Bing Hui was using was a World Breaker talisman. It was a precious talisman that could break through realms and directly leave the starry sky of the lower realms. Such a talisman was extremely precious even in the outer realms, and it was given to Bing Hui by the Ice Fiend King. It was obvious how much the Ice Fiend King valued Sakyamuni. Junior brother, this is the primeval primordial tree. The starry sky of the lower realms you're in is only an insignificant starry sky fruit on this tree. Bing Hui's gaze was filled with an extremely strong sense of superiority when he spoke of the lower realms. Obviously, he looked down on the lower realms, and his tone was filled with disdain. Sakyamuni didn't seem to hear the disdain in Bing Hui's tone, and he was looking at all of this with shock. He'd never imagined that the starry sky of the lower realms he was in was actually just a starry sky fruit on the primeval primordial tree. There was actually such a vast chaotic starry sky outside of this place. That's the outer realms. With my strength, I'm still unable to traverse the chaotic starry sky. But don't worry, I've already notified Master. He'll use a great ability to guide us back to the Variant Ghost Clan. Bing Hui said in a low voice. Sakyamuni calmed down. He was excited because this was a great opportunity for him. He'd already learned from Bing Hui that he possessed the undying Dao root, and it was an extremely rare Dao root and natural talent even in the outer realms. Especially when he heard about the situation in the outer realms, he was even more excited. There was also the Variant Ghost Clan's Ice Fiend King. It was said that he was one of the three kings of the Variant Ghost Clan. His strength was monstrous, and he was an expert even in the outer realms. For him to be accepted as a disciple by such an expert, his future was limitless. However, Sakyamuni was furious that he couldn't find Zhuowen. He hated that he couldn't kill Zhuowen with his own hands. Bing Hui saw that Sakyamuni's expression was not good. He said in a low voice, "Junior brother, don't worry. Zhuowen was in the lower realm's starry sky. He couldn't have escaped. That Wu Taiji and 3 Pure Ones are the strongest people in this lower realm. Finding that Zhuowen shouldn't be a problem. When the time comes, I will bring Zhuowen here and let you deal with him personally." Sakyamuni cupped his hands and said gratefully to Bing Hui, "Thank you, senior brother. Junior brother will never forget today's kindness." Bing Hui nodded in satisfaction. He knew that with Sakyamuni's undying Tao root, he would definitely soar into the sky in the future and become a supreme expert. Now that he had a good relationship with Bing Hui, he would also benefit from it in the future. This was also why Bing Hui had chased after Zhuowen all the way for Sakyamuni. Besides the fact that Zhuowen had the bloodline of the Panga clan, it was also because Zhuowen had a great enmity with Bing Hui. "Junior brother, you are destined to become a supreme expert in the future. Your potential is limitless. That Zhuowen is just a thing of the past. After you go to the Variant Ghost Clan and become the Ice Fiend King's disciple, your cultivation will rise rapidly. Not to mention the Heaven Breaker realm, you might even be able to reach the higher Carefree realm. That Zhuowen will only be left behind by you. In the future, you won't be people of the same world. You don't have to pay too much attention to this kind of person," Bing Hui said to Sakyamuni with a smile. Sakura nodded. He looked at the 100 domains in the distance. He knew that he was about to enter a new world and would have an even greater future. Meanwhile, Zhuowen was still in the starry skies of the lower realms, struggling to cultivate. Although his current cultivation was not as good as Zhuowen's, in the future, he would rapidly evolve, surpass Zhuowen, and leave him in the dust. In the future, he would face an even vaster world and even more monstrous geniuses. Zhuowen was no longer in his eyes. "Master is coming to get us," Bing Hui's excited voice sounded. In front of the chaotic starry sky, a blazing light instantly appeared and enveloped Bing Hui and Sakyamuni. The two of them turned into a beam of light and flew towards the 100 domains in the outer realm. Before leaving, Sakyamuni took a deep look at the starry sky fruit at the root of the primordial Hong tree. There was no trace of nostalgia in his eyes, only a trace of disdain and superiority. He knew that from the moment he left here, he had embarked on a different path. He no longer cared about anyone in the starry sky of the lower world. He knew that he was destined to break through the heavens. It was basically impossible for the creatures in the starry sky of the lower world. Even Zhuowen, who had defeated him several times, could not. In the quiet courtyard, Zhuowen's breathing was steady. He slowly opened his eyes, which were shining with excitement. During this time, he had been healing in the Palace of 3 Purities. He had also deeply experienced the benefits of the Heaven Accessing Place. The Heaven Accessing Place was built in the chaotic starry sky. He could sense the more complete rules of the starry sky and the richer heavenly way energy in this world. Zhuowen also found that there was a kind of energy in the chaotic starry sky. This kind of energy was above the heavenly way energy. It was a higher level of energy. He knew that this kind of energy should only exist in the chaotic starry sky. It could be absorbed and used by heaven-breaking experts. Zhuowen's injuries were actually very serious. He had even injured his source. If he had been recuperating in the Xianmi heavenly domain, it would have taken him several months to completely recover, even with a large amount of healing medicine. However, Zhuowen only spent about a week in the Heaven Accessing Place to completely recover from his injuries. This made Zhuowen realize the benefits of the Heaven Accessing Place. He also found that the cultivation of his original body of the human clan had improved a lot during this period of cultivation. He was not far from the peak of the middle stage of the heaven-reaching master. If his original body of the human clan cultivated at this speed, Zhuowen estimated that he could directly break through to the late stage of the heaven-reaching master in 1 or 2 years. This speed was amazing. Zhuowen stood up. He planned to go to the chaotic starry sky. He wanted to try his luck and see if he could find other ancestral wizard venomous insects in the chaotic starry sky. Walking out of the courtyard, Zhuowen was led by the red-crowned crane to see the 3 purities again. When the 3 purities learned that Zhuowen planned to enter the chaotic starry sky, they were not surprised and readily agreed. Chapter 3456. The chaotic valley. The mountain where the 3 purities' palace was located was called 3 Purities Mountain. The top of the mountain was where the 3 purities' palace was located. The mountainside and the foot of the mountain were basically caves where many practitioners of the human tribe practiced. Of course, these caves were not provided to the practitioners for free. They had to pay an expensive rent regularly. Without rent, the practitioners would be driven out and unable to find a place to practice. In the chaotic starry sky, there were many precious materials, such as high-level ores and magic medicines, and even broken cultivation methods and the remains of divine weapons. Once you found these things, you would become rich immediately. This was also the reason why there were so many shops on 3 Purities Street and Chaotic Street. Basically, treasures obtained from the chaotic starry sky were traded here. After leaving the 3 Purities Palace, the red-crowned crane showed the appearance of a 12 or 13-year-old Taoist boy. His face was pink and crystal clear, like a porcelain doll. As for Zhuowen, he had changed his appearance after leaving the 3 Purities Palace. Now, the Desolation Street's Wizard Tower was very active in capturing him and had issued a warrant for his arrest. He wouldn't be so foolish as to use his original appearance to head to the chaotic starry sky. The little Taoist boy took him to the back of the 3 Purities Mountain. Zhuowen found that there was a vast wasteland behind the 3 Purities Mountain. At the end of the wasteland stood an ancient and weathered giant gate. The giant gate was simple and unadorned, with many ancient patterns engraved on its surface. The giant gate was hollow, and its surface was overflowing with light and color. Obviously, it was set with an extremely powerful restriction formation. At this moment, many practitioners were gathered on the wasteland in front of the giant gate. Furthermore, there were flashes of light coming from within the giant door. There were cultivators going in and out of the giant door. Your Excellency, behind the giant gate is the chaotic starry sky. As long as you have the access token to the heaven accessing place, you are qualified to enter the chaotic starry sky. Lord 3 Purities asked me to tell you that the chaotic starry sky is different from the starry sky of the mortal world. It has a very strong coercion. Your Excellency, although you are powerful, you should be careful and not stay in the chaotic starry sky for too long. The little Taoist boy's voice was very clear, and he solemnly reminded Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded and watched as the little Taoist boy left. Then, he strode towards the giant door. Zhuowen's arrival didn't attract the attention of others in the wasteland. There were simply too many cultivators coming and going here. Unless one was a truly famous expert, no one would waste time to pay attention to others. There was no one controlling the giant door. Zhuowen took out his entry token, and the restrictions on the giant door didn't hinder him. Soon, he entered the giant door. After passing through the gate, he immediately sensed a terrifying might that was like countless mountains crashing down on Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen let out a muffled groan and almost coughed up blood. Zhuowen was shocked. He immediately activated his Pangu's sacred body. His whole body emitted a crystal light to withstand the strong pressure that suddenly surged over. After stabilizing his body, Zhuowen began to pay attention to his surroundings. He found that he was still surrounded by a starry sky. However, the starry sky in front of him was deeper than the starry sky of the lower world. In the distance there were flickering golden blue stars. Of course, the biggest difference between the chaotic starry sky and the lower world's starry sky was the constant strong pressure. Even Zhuowen was almost injured and coughed up blood when he wasn't paying attention just now. In addition, Zhuowen felt that the surrounding starry sky was more vast and complete. Previously, he had cultivated in the Three Purities Palace and was separated from the chaotic starry sky by a layer of restriction. However, now that he had completely entered the chaotic starry sky, he found that the laws in the chaotic starry sky were clearer in his perception. There was no doubt that if he could withstand the pressure in the chaotic starry sky, the effect of cultivating here would be better than cultivating in the Three Purities Palace. Zhuowen's gaze fell on a valley suspended in the chaotic void in the distance. This valley was called the Chaotic Valley. It was the only valley in the chaotic void. It was also a treasure trove in the chaotic starry sky. This was because many things floated in from the chaotic starry sky outside. Some of them fell in the chaotic valley. The chaotic valley was one of the places with the highest probability of finding treasures. Moreover, it was much less dangerous than the other places. Therefore, the number of practitioners in the chaotic valley was the highest. Zhuowen didn't even think about it and rushed to the chaotic valley in the distance. He intended to sense whether he could sense the aura of the ancestral sorcery goo worms in the chaotic valley. Along the way, Zhuowen encountered a good number of cultivators. He also encountered a good number of fights. Most of them were due to unequal distribution of resources. Some were simply trying to rob him. Zhuowen didn't pay attention to them. This kind of thing was too common in the chaotic starry sky. He saw 4 or 5 robberies in just 2 hours. About 6 hours later, Zhuowen finally arrived at the chaotic valley. The valley was very large and was derived from the depths of the chaotic starry sky. Millions of kilometers deep in the valley, he found a bounded domain emitting white light. He knew that this bounded domain was the boundary of the heaven accessing place. On the other side of the boundary was the real chaotic starry sky, which was not restricted by the heaven accessing place. The pressure there was much stronger than the chaotic starry sky in the heaven accessing place. Once crossing the boundary, except for the half-step breaking heaven realm practitioners, the rest of the practitioners in the heaven accessing place would definitely die on the spot. There were many practitioners in the chaotic valley. There were both practitioners of the human clan and experts of the alien clan. Zhuowen found a remote corner and sat down cross-legged. He began to mobilize the power of the ancestral sorcery goo worms in his body. He intended to use the connection between the ancestral sorcery goo worms to search for other ancestral sorcery goo worms in the chaotic valley. About a quarter of an hour later, Zhuowen frowned and slowly opened his eyes. He found that the ancestral sorcery goo worms in his body were indifferent. That was to say, there were no ancestral sorcery goo worms in the chaotic valley. Fellow Taoist, I see that you are alone. Did you come to explore the chaotic starry sky alone? Suddenly, a slightly charming voice came from not far away. Zhuowen stood up and looked to the right. There, a charming and beautiful woman slowly walked over. Her beautiful eyes were full of charm as she looked at Zhuowen with a smile. Zhuowen glanced at the woman and found that she was a practitioner of the human clan. Moreover, her cultivation was good. She was at the peak of the heaven-accessing master. Zhuowen nodded and said, "Yes. The rent for my cave residence is due. I had no choice but to come out and explore. Maybe I can find a good opportunity." The charming woman said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist, you and I are in the same boat. I also came out because the rent for my cave residence was due." Speaking of this, the charming woman transmitted her voice to Zhuowen. "Fellow Taoist, I found a treasure place. It is suspected to be the graveyard of the experts in the chaotic starry sky. However, it is full of danger. I can't go in alone. Since you are alone, why don't you explore the graveyard with me?" Chapter 3457. Chao Shulan, the charming woman, revealed a cautious expression and transmitted a voice transmission. Yes. I saw it by accident. That place is very mysterious, and it's near the border of the depths of the chaotic valley. Zhuowen's heart stirred, but he soon felt that something was fishy and asked, "Fellow Taoist, why are you so sure that it's the graveyard of the experts in the chaotic starry sky? You'll know when you go there. There are tombstones erected there, but it's too dangerous. I can't get close by myself, and I need a few more people to join forces to enter the graveyard. If it weren't for the fact that you're a human cultivator and you're all alone, I wouldn't have shared these benefits with you," the charming woman rebuked. Zhuowen smiled slightly. He didn't believe what this woman said. Of course, he wasn't afraid of this woman playing any trick. On the surface, his aura was only at the middle stage of the heaven-piercing master realm, but his true strength was enough to destroy a peak heaven-piercing master in a few moves. Moreover, Zhuowen also wanted to see if the so-called graveyard of the experts in the chaotic starry sky that this woman spoke of really existed. Now, he was really too curious about the 100 domains outside the chaotic starry sky. If he had the chance, he really wanted to leave the lower layer of the starry sky and go to the 100 domains to take a look. But Zhuowen knew that it was not very possible for him at present, unless he really cultivated to the heaven-breaking realm. Moreover, he knew that once he broke through to the heaven-breaking realm and cultivated the primordial technique in the grand word stone in his hand, he would definitely rise rapidly. Back then, he had asked the heaven-splitting axes artifact spirit about the primordial technique. At that time, the heaven-splitting axes artifact spirit didn't know that he had obtained a part of the primordial technique, and told him the origin of the primordial technique. It was said that this technique had existed since ancient times, and it was a very terrifying technique that was born from heaven and earth. It surpassed all the techniques in the 100 domains and was a true supreme technique. Once such a technique appeared, it would definitely cause endless bloodshed in the 100 domains. Of course, the primordial technique was truly too mysterious. Since the birth of the 100 territories until now, this cultivation technique had only appeared a mere few times, and every single time it appeared, it would cause a peerless war that caused the deaths of countless experts. Once a cultivator obtained such a cultivation method, without exception, they would become a supreme expert in the 100 outer realms. Their names would shake the entire 100 outer realms. Zhuowen was very confident that as long as he could advance to shattering heaven tier, then he would be able to cultivate the ancient primordial technique. When he entered the 100 outer domains, his evolution speed would definitely not be slower than the geniuses of the 100 outer domains. He might even be faster and stronger. In the end, Zhuowen agreed to join the charming woman's team. The seductive woman was ecstatic to see Zhuowen agree, and she led Zhuowen into the depths of the chaotic valley. Along the way, the two of them chatted and became familiar with each other. Zhuowen learned that this woman's name was Chao Shulan, and she was once the ancestor of a Dao Palace level force in the North Dao domain of the Xianmi Heavenly Domain. Later, in order to pursue a higher realm, she left the Xianmi Heavenly Domain and entered the Heavenly Secret Realm. When Chao Shulan first entered the Heavenly Secret Realm, she was only at the early stage of the Heavenly Master Realm. Now, her cultivation was already at the peak of the Heavenly Master Realm. It was said that she was actually not far from the half-step shattering heaven tier, and she only lacked an opportunity. In Chao Shulan's opinion, the graveyard of the experts of the chaotic stars was her opportunity. During the conversation, Zhuowen did not give his real name. After all, the name Zhuowen was taboo in the Heavenly Secret Realm. Now that he was wanted by Wu Taiji, Zhuowen naturally would not be stupid enough to use this name. The pseudonym he used was Muchenshua, which meant that he missed Muchenshua. Soon, Zhuowen and Chao Shulan arrived at the end of the chaotic valley. Standing at the end of the valley, Zhuowen could clearly sense the powerful restriction formation set up at the border. At the end of the valley, Zhuowen saw two people. Both of them were men. One of them was an old man with a brandy nose. He wore a loose black robe and held a wine gourd in his hand. As he drank, he sized up Zhuowen. The other was a thin middle-aged man with a cold expression. He carried a long sword on his back, and his body was as sharp as an unsheathed sword. His aura was very unusual. Both of them were not simple, especially the thin middle-aged man. Although he was also at the peak of the heavenly master realm, his aura was stronger than Chao Shulan's. As for the brandy-nosed old man, his cultivation was slightly weaker. He was probably at the late stage of the heavenly master realm. No matter if it was the old man or the middle-aged man, after Chao Shulan brought Zhuowen in, they all cast their gazes on Zhuowen, constantly sizing him up. The brandy-nosed old man sized up Zhuowen, then looked at Chao Shulan and asked doubtfully, "Chao Shulan, why did you find a guy who is only at the middle stage of the heavenly master realm? Is his level of array Dao very high like me?" Although the middle-aged man did not speak, his gaze also fell on Chao Shulan, and his eyes revealed a look of inquiry. Chao Shulan said with a smile, "I really couldn't find a suitable person. This little brother just happened to come to the chaotic valley alone, so I chose him." Zhuowen's eyes were calm, and he did not feel the slightest strange emotion from Chao Shulan's disdainful words. With this kid's cultivation, he won't be able to walk long after he leaves. The brandy-nosed old man said worriedly, "I still have a heavenly master talisman on me. It's enough to protect him until he reaches that place." Chao Shulan said with a faint smile. Although Zhuowen's heart was filled with doubts, he did not interrupt. He could tell that these people were only looking for him to make up the numbers. After all, his cultivation was the weakest among them. It was pardonable that these people did not pay much attention to him. Fellow Taoist Zhua, these two are fellow Taoist Mo Xinhong and fellow Taoist Su Yuanlong. Chao Shulan pointed at the brandy-nosed old man and the middle-aged man and introduced them to Zhuowen. The brandy-nosed old man was called Mo Xinhong, and it was said that he was a rogue cultivator. The middle-aged man with a long sword on his back was called Su Yuanlong, and he was once the ancestor of a Dao Palace-level force in the Xianmi Heavenly Domain's Southern Dao Domain. He was very strong and was said to be the main force in this expedition to that mysterious place. Chao Shulan also introduced Zhuowen to the brandy-nosed old man and the middle-aged man. The brandy-nosed old man grinned at Zhuowen, but his smile was full of malice and did not have the slightest intention of welcoming him. As for the middle-aged man, he did not even look at Zhuowen. He crossed his arms over his chest and closed his eyes to rest. Zhuowen did not care. Instead, he looked at Chao Shulan and asked, "Fellow Taoist Chao, where is the mysterious place you mentioned?" Chao Shulan's eyes were solemn as she said, "It's just outside the boundary." "Outside the boundary? There are rules in the heaven accessing place that you can't leave the boundary without permission. The chaotic starry sky outside is too dangerous, and the pressure is even stronger than inside. Even a half-step from heaven-breaking realm might die if he goes out," Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Chapter 3458, The Golden Coffin. I have the best Ascension-grade talisman, the Divine Protection Talisman. After going out, holding on for 2 hours is no problem. Back then, there was a gap in this boundary, and I accidentally left the boundary and entered that mysterious place, where I saw a coffin with a very terrifying aura. I'm sure that the person buried in that coffin is definitely a legendary heaven-breaking realm elite. However, that pressure was too terrifying, and it was difficult for me to get close with my own strength. That's why I wanted to gather everyone's strength and explore together. It's a pity that the cultivators of Sanqing Street found this gap and sent a divine array master of Heaven Realm to patch it up. When the time comes, according to the contribution of the four of us, the items inside will be distributed according to our discretion," Chao Shulan said in a low voice. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked deeply at Chao Shulan. This Chao Shulan was not simple. She actually had the divine protection talisman, and by the looks of it, there was more than one. Zhuowen had heard of the divine protection talisman before. It was a top-grade defensive talisman among the ascension-grade talismans, especially against energy forms like pressure. This kind of talisman was very precious, and it was basically very difficult to buy in the outside world. Even if it could be bought, it would also be at a sky-high price. This Chao Shulan could take out 4 of these talismans at once. One had to admit that this woman's foundation was very deep. After Chao Shulan finished speaking, Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong both nodded, and cupped their hands at Chao Shulan. This time, Chao Shulan had indeed put in most of her effort. After all, she took out 4 divine protection talismans at once, which were priceless. They had already discussed beforehand that when distributing, Chao Shulan would get the most. Fellow Taoist Mo, next, it's up to you to break the restrictions of this boundary. Chao Shulan looked at Mo Xinhong and said. Mo Xinhong chuckled and said, "Although I'm only a peak creation grade formation master, the restrictions of this boundary are of ascension grade, but the range is too large. With my level of formation Tao, creating a small hole is no problem." As he spoke, Mo Xinhong took out array flags one after another, and began to break the restrictions of the boundary. Chao Shulan and Su Yuanlong stood to the side, waiting silently. No one said a word to Zhuowen. Zhuowen was a little speechless. He was a divine master of the formation of heaven. If he wanted to open a small gap in the restriction of this world, it would only take a moment. However, it was clear that Chao Shulan, Su Yuanlong, and the others really treated him as a stopgap. This made Zhuowen feel slightly helpless, and he could only silently stand at the side and watch. At the same time, Zhuowen was still wary of Chao Shulan. This Chao Shulan was not a simple person. He was afraid that she was hiding something from him. Once they reached that mysterious place, he planned to be wary of this woman. After several hours, Chao Shulan and Su Yuanlong were getting impatient. Only then did Mo Xinhong manage to open a hole that was about the size of a person. On the other hand, Mo Xinhong's forehead was already covered in cold sweat, and he was panting heavily. Breaking the restriction this time had consumed a great deal of his mental strength. "This hole won't last long. We have to get out quickly," Mo Xinhong said to Chao Shulan and the others. Chao Shulan nodded. She took out 3 divine protection talismans and handed them to Mo Xinhong, Su Yuanlong, and Zhuowen. "After we get out, activate these divine protection talismans immediately, and then follow me." As Chao Shulan spoke, she took the lead and entered the boundary hole. At the same time, she activated the divine protection talismans on her. Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong were not to be outdone. They followed closely behind and activated the divine protection talismans. Zhuowen was the last to go out. The moment he entered the chaotic starry sky outside, he felt an even more terrifying pressure. Countless cracks instantly appeared on his body, and blood began to flow from the cracks. This frightened Zhuowen so much that he quickly activated the divine protection talismans. A red barrier suddenly appeared around him. At the same time, the terrifying pressure on his body had also been greatly weakened. However, Zhuowen could feel that the red barrier formed by the divine protection talisman was violently shaking. He knew that the divine protection talisman wouldn't be able to last for long under such terrifying pressure. Zhuowen silently followed behind Chao Shulan and the others. After about half an hour, Chao Shulan stopped in front of a huge meteorite floating in the starry sky. Upon closer inspection, Zhuowen realized that the meteorite was half spherical. He then realized that the meteorite was actually a destroyed planet. The mysterious place is at the core of this destroyed planet. Chao Shulan pointed at the half-destroyed planet in front of them with certainty. The three of them did not speak. They only nodded and signaled Chao Shulan to continue leading the way. The four of them entered the destroyed planet and reached the deepest part. The moment they reached the core of the planet, the red barrier formed by the divine protection talismans actually shook violently. A pressure even more terrifying than the chaotic starry sky outside suddenly came from the core. Only then did the four of them realize that there was a huge wordless tombstone erected in the depths of the core. This wordless tombstone looked very ordinary, as if it was forged from ordinary granite. However, this wordless tombstone just stood there, exuding an extremely terrifying pressure. About a few hundred meters behind the wordless tombstone, there was a large wasteland. In the center of the wasteland, there was a place where divine swords were inserted into the ground, emitting brilliant light, forming a circular fence. Furthermore, the hilt of each divine sword was bound together by black iron chains, forming a circle around them. Zhuowen's eyes were like torches. He could tell at a glance that these divine swords that were inserted into the ground carried a destructive aura. These were definitely not ordinary divine swords. The aura was too terrifying. Zhuowen suspected that these divine swords might have surpassed the Heaven Ascension grade, or even the half-step Heaven Breaker grade. Could it be a Heaven Breaker grade divine weapon? Zhuowen's pupils shrank as he thought of a bold guess. It must be known that the ones who had gained the most in the entire Heaven Access secret realm were definitely Wu Taiji, the master of the Wu Tower, and Taoist Three Purities, the master of the Three Purities Palace. Wu Taiji had obtained an incomplete Heaven Breaker grade technique and broken through from the fourth Heaven's Blight to the fifth Heaven's Blight, shocking the entire Heaven Access secret realm. As for Taoist Three Purities, he had obtained a broken Heaven Breaker grade divine weapon and was extremely powerful. Even Wu Taiji did not dare to offend Three Purities and fight them head-on. But now, the divine swords inserted into the ground behind the wordless tombstone were very likely complete Heaven Breaker grade divine weapons. How could Zhuowen not be shocked? This was definitely a frighteningly rich harvest. Zhuowen also noticed that there was a rather large golden coffin floating in the center of the fence formed by the divine swords. The golden coffin was bound by black chains, which were connected to the hilts of the swords that formed the fence around it. The aura emanating from the golden coffin was even more terrifying. Zhuowen even wondered if he could reach the golden coffin with his peak 8-star Pangu sacred body. There must be a Heaven Breaker grade expert buried in this coffin. Chapter 3459. Wordless Tombstone. Chao Shulan and Mo Xinhong's eyes shone brightly as they looked at the floating golden coffin behind the wordless tombstone in pleasant surprise. Just the divine swords around the golden coffin were all extraordinary. They were heaven-breaking divine tools that transcended this starry sky, and the owner of this floating golden coffin was definitely extraordinary. And to be able to have these heaven-breaking divine tools protecting him, he was definitely a very powerful heaven-breaking tier elite. Of course, Chao Shulan was the calmest. It wasn't her first time entering this mysterious place, and she had already experienced the grand occasion here. Fellow Taoist Chao, this is a great opportunity. I really didn't expect you to actually find it. Mo Xinhong grinned, his eyes filled with excitement and passion. The taciturn Su Yuanlong's expression was not as calm as before. Even Zhuowen was shocked by the scene before him. But Zhuowen quickly calmed down. His divine sense was constantly observing the golden coffin behind the wordless tombstone. The pressure here was very terrifying, even more powerful and oppressive than the chaotic starry sky outside. Especially the pressure behind the wordless tombstone, Zhuowen was even more terrifying. Zhuowen was sure that even with the protection of the divine protection talisman, if he crossed the wordless tombstone, the divine protection talisman would immediately shatter. At that time, his entire body would have to bear the onslaught of that terrifying pressure. Thinking of this, Zhuowen looked at Chao Shulan and said solemnly, "Fellow Taoist Chao, the pressure behind the wordless tombstone is even stronger. Even with the divine protection talisman, I'm afraid we can't approach that golden coffin, and might even lose our lives." Su Yuanlong and Mo Xinhong also came back to their senses. Their divine senses were very powerful, and they naturally sensed the terror behind the wordless tombstone. They knew that with their strength, stepping into that place would only lead to disaster. Chao Shulan smiled and said, "Everyone, don't worry. I've been here a few times, so I naturally know more than you all." As she spoke, Chao Shulan took out 4 shards that emitted azure gold light, and tossed 3 of them to Su Yuanlong, Mo Xinhong, and Zhuowen. Zhuowen took the fragment in his hand and discovered that it was a bronze fragment. The surface of the fragment was engraved with lifelike divine birds and strange beasts, and it was emitting a greenish-gold color. These 4 fragments are the greatest loot I've obtained in all these years in the chaotic cosmos. They're fragments of a bronze cauldron. Although I don't know the exact grade of that bronze cauldron, it's definitely a divine tool that's beyond the half-step heaven-crushing level. These 4 fragments contain a powerful combination attack. The 4 of you should study it first. Then, according to the joint attack method in this fragment, the 4 of us should be able to break into the front of the golden coffin, Chao Shulan said in a deep voice. Zhuowen observed the bronze shard in his hand and probed it with his divine sense. He immediately sensed some information from the shard. There was indeed a combined attack method recorded on it. It required 4 people to combine their strength and condense their strength into a large cauldron phantom that had an extremely strong defense. Mo Xinhong, Su Yuanlong, and Zhuowen were all extraordinary cultivators, and they quickly finished studying it. Then, under Chao Shulan's guidance, the 4 of them started to summon the bronze shard, which floated above their heads. "Everyone, channel your strength into the bronze shard. Don't hold back. Otherwise, something might happen behind the blank tombstone," Chao Shulan urged the 3 of them. Su Yuanlong and Mo Xinhong nodded and channeled their heavenly Tao energy into the bronze shard without holding back. Zhuowen was a little hesitant. He felt that channeling all of his strength into the bronze shard was a little inappropriate. However, seeing Chao Shulan and the others doing this, he couldn't help but give it his all. Of course, Zhuowen's so-called giving it his all was only channeling his strength into the heaven-crushing master intermediate stage. After all, the power of his Pangu's sacred body was far too terrifying. If he gave it his all, he would most likely surpass everyone in this group. That would be too ostentatious, and Zhuowen wouldn't do that. Chao Shulan carefully observed Zhuowen and the others and found that they were indeed giving it their all. She nodded with satisfaction and began to activate the bronze shard in her hand. With a buzzing sound, Chao Shulan's bronze shard emitted a blazing azure gold color. Then, the other 3 bronze shards did the same. They resonated with each other and formed the shadow of a huge bronze cauldron. The bronze cauldron's shadow exuded an ancient and vicissitude aura, and a vast majesty overflowed from the cauldron. As soon as the bronze cauldron's shadow appeared, Zhuowen immediately felt that the uncomfortable pressure around him disappeared. It was all blocked by the bronze cauldron's shadow. "Let's go." Chao Shulan was very decisive. With the bronze shard floating above her head, she walked toward the blank tombstone. Zhuowen and the others followed closely behind and soon passed the blank tombstone. Boom, boom, boom. The moment they passed the blank tombstone, a deafening sound came from the surface of the bronze cauldron. It rumbled like thunder. The 4 people's faces changed drastically. They felt a pressure that was even stronger than the one outside the blank tombstone. Their bodies were sore and numb, and it was difficult for them to move. They finally knew how terrifying the pressure behind the blank tombstone was. They used the joint attack method to summon the bronze cauldron to protect themselves, but they still felt such a terrifying pressure. It was obvious how terrifying the pressure here was. Calm down and continue to move forward. This time we must reach the golden coffin. Chao Shulan's beautiful eyes flashed with a determined light, and she said in a deep voice. The four people did not speak. They all focused on activating the bronze shards and slowly approached the golden coffin. Puff! The moment they arrived in front of the golden coffin, the pressure swept over like a tide. The surrounding bronze cauldron shadows trembled violently and began to distort. Mo Xinhong's cultivation was the weakest. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his forehead was covered with cold sweat. His face was extremely pale. Chao Shulan and Su Yuanlong's cultivation was much higher than Mo Xinhong's. Although they did not spit out blood, their faces did not look good. Zhuowen had the powerful Pangu sacred body, so he barely blocked the terrifying shock wave of pressure. However, in order not to arouse others' suspicion, he spat out blood like Mo Xinhong and pretended to be very weak. Fellow Taoist Chao, there is a powerful restriction around the golden coffin. This restriction is far stronger than a sky-level formation. What should we do? I can't break the restriction around it. After Mo Xinhong calmed down, he found that there was a very powerful restriction around the golden coffin. Its level was very high, and he had no idea where to start. Zhuowen's eyes became serious. His formation skills were already very high, reaching the sky level. However, when faced with the restriction in front of him, he had no idea where to start. He knew that the restriction around the golden coffin was definitely beyond the sky level. It was very extraordinary. Chapter 3460. The bronze fragments. Su Yuanlong frowned and looked at Chao Shulan in confusion. Chao Shulan had been here a few times and should know the situation around the golden coffin. Don't look at me like that. The restriction around the golden coffin is indeed very strong, but it doesn't have to be broken by a god formation master. I have my own way of breaking it. Take the bronze fragments and place them around the golden coffin. Then, pour your blood essence into the fragments and break the formation, Chao Shulan said with certainty. Mo Xinhong frowned and said, Fellow Taoist Chao, why are you so sure that the bronze fragments can break the formation? I've checked it just now. This is a sealing formation. Your method might not work. However, Chao Shulan said seriously, Taoist Mo, I'll be honest with you. I obtained these 4 bronze fragments near this wordless tombstone. I also obtained the method to break this formation. These 4 bronze fragments are the key to breaking the formation. Of course, if fellow Taoist Mo doesn't believe me, you can choose to back out. I will find other fellow Taoists to work with me. Mo Xinhong's expression changed slightly. He was already here, especially when he saw the heaven-breaking divine swords around the golden coffin. Needless to say, there must be something even more precious in the golden coffin. As long as he could get any one of these items, Mo Xinhong would definitely be able to rise to the top. He would not let go of such a rare opportunity. I believe in fellow Taoist Chao. Su Yuanlong cut open his right palm. A crack appeared on his palm and blood spurted out. Su Yuanlong came to the east side of the golden coffin and grabbed the bronze fragments. Although the 4 of them were temporarily separated, the bronze fragments were the combined strength of the 4 of them. There was a bronze cauldron shadow above each of their heads that resisted the terrifying pressure from the surroundings. When Mo Xinhong saw that Su Yuanlong was so straightforward, even though he had some doubts in his heart, the temptation of the golden coffin in front of him was just too great. He did not think too much as he also cut open his palm and held his bronze fragment as he stood on the west side. Chao Shulan stood to the north of the golden coffin and looked at Zhuowen, who was still standing to the side, and said, Taoist Zhuo, why haven't you started yet? Zhuowen took a deep look at Chao Shulan, his eyes flashing. He always felt that Chao Shulan was a little strange. The sealing formation around the golden coffin was definitely not something that could be broken just by activating the bronze shards with his blood essence. After all, he was a heaven-reaching divine array master, and his array Dao level was much higher than Mo Xinhong's. He could tell at a glance that the restriction formation around the golden coffin was unusual. Moreover, from what he knew, wasn't using blood essence to break the restrictions of the formation a blood sacrifice? However, the blood sacrifice didn't only require blood essence, it also required the sacrifice of the target's life. When Chao Shulan saw that Zhuowen had yet to make a move, she said impatiently, "Daoist Zhua, what is the meaning of this? Now you're the only one left. Don't you want the treasure in the golden coffin?" At this moment, Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong also looked at Zhuowen with a strange expression. They didn't know what this new recruit was afraid of. Zhuowen was silent. He slowly walked to the south of the golden coffin, made a cut on his palm, and grabbed the bronze shards. Chao Shulan's beautiful eyes showed a trace of relief when she saw that Zhuowen was so sensible. Then, she also made a cut on her palm and held the bronze shards tightly in her hand. When Zhuowen's palm touched the bronze shards, he immediately felt that the blood essence in his body was rapidly being absorbed by the bronze shards. Moreover, the speed of absorption was so fast that it was completely beyond his imagination. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and used the torch dragon's eyes to see through the essence of the restriction formation around the golden coffin. Then, he secretly threw out the beast bone formation plate and started to set up a temporary teleportation formation around the coffin with his supreme array Dao. Outside the wordless tombstone, a speck of dust slowly landed on the surface of the rock in the corner and flickered with a faint light. The speck of dust was formed by the Great World. After Zhuowen followed Chao Shulan and the others to the back of the wordless tombstone, he secretly hid the Great World outside the tombstone just in case. While the doppelganger was setting up a temporary teleportation formation around the golden coffin, the main body was also setting up a temporary teleportation formation in the Great World. Once the doppelganger was in danger, he could immediately activate the temporary teleportation formation and directly teleport into the Great World. After the temporary teleportation formation was set up, Zhuowen wasn't in a hurry to leave. His eyes fell on Chao Shulan and he found that Chao Shulan's face was also very pale. She looked like she had lost a lot of blood. Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong's faces changed drastically. Mo Xinhong hurriedly shouted, "Fellow Daoist Chao, what's going on? This bronze shards has been absorbing my blood essence. If this goes on, I'm afraid my blood essence will be sucked dry." Su Yuanlong's face was also very pale. He looked at Chao Shulan and said in a low voice, "Fellow Daoist Chao, you have to give me an explanation." Chao Shulan's pretty face was extremely pale. Her lips trembled, but Zhuowen saw a strange smile appear at the corner of Chao Shulan's mouth. It was just a flash. "Don't worry, the two of you," Chao Shulan said. "This seal is very powerful, so it naturally needs a lot of blood essence. As long as we hold on for a while, we will be able to break this seal. When that time comes, there will be a lot of heaven-breaking divine artifacts and divine herbs. Then we will be rich." Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong looked at each other. Although they were vigilant, they couldn't help the greed in their hearts and continued to hold on. "The two of you, this is a blood sacrifice method. It's a trap. We have all been deceived by this woman. We have to work together to break free of this place. Otherwise, we will all die here," Zhuowen reminded them. He had already felt that something was wrong, and now he wanted to speak his mind. He wanted to work together with Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong to break free. Sure enough, Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong's hearts trembled. They looked at Zhuowen and then at Chao Shulan. Fellow Taoists, this person's cultivation is the lowest, so he is useless. Now that a lot of his blood essence has been absorbed, he is afraid. However, this is a critical moment. If you leave now, everything will be for naught. Of course, if you don't want the heaven-breaking divine artifacts and divine herbs, then feel free to leave. In any case, I won't object to it. After all, you came here of your own free will. I won't force you. Chao Shulan sighed softly and said in a slightly disappointed tone. Chao Shulan's actions immediately caused Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong to be surprised and bewildered. When they saw that Chao Shulan was doing the same as them and was using blood essence to remove the restrictions, the doubts in their hearts temporarily dispersed. Fortune comes from danger. A coward like you must have never seen the world. You are so scared in such a short time. How dare you instigate us to leave? What a joke! Mo Xinhong snorted at Zhuowen. If you dare to leave without permission, I will kill you. Su Yuanlong threatened Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. It seemed that Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong didn't believe him at all. Chapter 3461. The seizing Plazhuowen's silence was a sign of submission in the eyes of Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong. Disdainful smiles appeared on their faces as they ignored Zhuowen. In their eyes, Zhuowen was the weakest among them. If he really ran away, they could easily suppress him. Therefore, they didn't pay much attention to Zhuowen. As time went by, Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong's faces became paler and paler. They began to feel weak. Half of their blood essence had been sucked away. They began to feel dizzy and dizzy. Zhuowen, on the other hand, was much better than Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong. His Pangu sacred body was too heaven-defying. His blood essence was soaring. Moreover, when the bronze shard was absorbing his blood essence, he deliberately controlled the flow of his blood essence. Only a small part of it was absorbed by the bronze shard. However, Zhuowen pretended to be worse than Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong, as if he would faint at any time. Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong finally realized that something was wrong. They began to struggle, trying to break free from the bronze shard. However, they were shocked to find that the bronze shard, which had absorbed nearly half of their blood essence, produced a terrifying suction force. It firmly sucked Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong to the surface of the restriction around the golden coffin. Fellow Taoist Chao, are you still not done? Mo Xinhong was covered in cold sweat. His legs were trembling. Too much of his blood essence had been absorbed. He was about to lose his balance. He looked at Chao Shulan. Su Yuanlong's eyes also became unfriendly. There was even a trace of anger. He also looked at Chao Shulan. Soon, they found that Chao Shulan was on the north side. She was spasming and twitching. Her aura was very weak. She was all skin and bones like a mummy. However, Chao Shulan's eyes were emitting a golden light. Her pupils had turned golden, as if they were gilded. They looked very strange and deep. Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong saw Chao Shulan's strange appearance and felt a chill in their hearts. They felt that something was wrong. Chao Shulan did not pay attention to the bewildered Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong. Her pair of golden eyes looked at Zhuowen, and the corners of her mouth revealed a cold smile. Zhuanyenxue, stop pretending. With your physique, how can you be so weak? Chao Shulan said. Her voice, it didn't sound like a woman's. Translation Chao Shulan. Zhuowen looked at Chao Shulan. And Chao Shulan. Chao Shulan. Chao Shulan. Chao was Chao Shulan. Was Chao Shulan. Was Shulan was translation was Chao Shulan? Chao Shulan? Chao Shulan translation Mo Xinhong and Su Yuanlong also felt that something was wrong with Chao Shulan. They desperately urged their heavenly energy to resist the terrifying suction force from the bronze shard. Unfortunately, the more the two of them struggled, the stronger the suction force from the bronze shard became. Under this kind of consumption, they became weaker and weaker. Translation Translation is attention. Chao Shulan glanced at Emo Shinhong and Su Yuanlong. With a gentle wave of her withered arm, the bronze fragments in front of Emo Shinhong and Su Yuanlong exploded. Blazing azure gold light enveloped the two of them. The two of them screamed and exploded into a bloody mist. They couldn't be more dead. As for the blood mist formed by the two of them, it all surged into the golden coffin within the restriction and was completely absorbed by it. Possession? Zhuowen revealed a strange expression as he looked at Chao Shulan's golden eyes. He already had some guesses about Chao Shulan's current identity. Haha, you are very smart. You guessed my identity. I admire you because you have a powerful bloodline. I smell the scent of the Panga clan in your blood. It seems that you are related to the Panga clan. Chao Shulan licked her lips and looked at Zhuowen with her golden eyes. There was a hint of greed in her eyes. Are you from the 100 Territories? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and asked coldly. Oh, it seems that you know a lot. You even know about the 100 Territories. But you are a dead man after all. You don't need to know so much. You just need to be obedient and let me possess your body. Chao Shulan grinned. Then, she exploded into a bloody mist. Her blood essence was absorbed by the golden coffin. Then, the chains around the golden coffin shattered. The lid of the golden coffin suddenly opened. A golden light rushed out from inside and rushed toward Zhuowen's glabella. The aura of this golden light was too terrifying. As soon as it appeared, the surrounding divine swords all trembled violently. The black chains connected to the divine swords all broke. As for the seals that were placed around the golden coffin, they were instantly shattered. It was simply too powerful. Before Zhuowen could react, the golden light had rushed into his glabella and entered his divine soul. My luck is not bad. After waiting for so long in this lower realm starry sky, a decent physical body has finally appeared. Although this body contains the bloodline of the Panga clan, after I completely possess this body, I will find an opportunity to buy a meridian-dissolving pill to completely dissolve the bloodline of the Panga clan. In case those clans who have a grudge against me find trouble because of this bloodline. The voice in the golden light was ancient and vicissitudes of life. He was very proud and felt that this possession would be smooth sailing. With his strength, who in this mere starry sky of the lower realms could resist the attack of his soul, so he didn't take Zhuowen seriously at all. Zhuowen's face was pale and he looked very painful. He could not help but hold his head and keep rolling on the ground. At the same time, the Panga banner in the depths of his divine soul began to activate. The blazing white light illuminated the entire divine soul world. Bang! 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 In an instant, the Panga banner blocked the golden light. The golden light also revealed its true body. It was a very young man. Is this the Panga banner, one of the most precious treasures of the Panga clan? How can a mixed-blood member of the Panga clan have such a precious treasure? The young man showed an incredulous expression. But soon, he realized that something was wrong. He sneered and said, "It's just a replica. It's not the real Panga banner." The young man did not care. He suddenly threw out a hand and hit the Panga banner. The Panga banner was not to be outdone. It burst out with a terrifying white light to fight against the young man. Suddenly, in Zhuowen's spiritual world, a terrifying battle wave was set off, surging like a stormy sea. This caused Zhuowen to suffer. His soul was in chaos like an overturned sea, causing him to suffer extreme pain. He held his head as he ceaselessly rolled about on the ground, and he was in an extremely sorry state. At this moment, the golden coffin in the center produced a suction force, trying to suck Zhuowen into the golden coffin. Zhuowen was alert. He knew that if he entered the golden coffin, he would never have a chance to escape. Although he had a splitting headache, Zhuowen reluctantly activated the temporary teleportation formation that he had set up. Chapter 3462. Shattered Divine Sense in the Great World. In the pavilion of the island in the middle of the lake, the main body sat cross-legged beside the lake, while the clone spasmed and rolled around. In the world of his divine sense, the battle of possession was still ongoing, and it was becoming more and more intense. The Panga banner was already heaven-defying enough, and it allowed Zhuowen's divine sense to be as powerful as a half-step heaven-crushing cultivator. However, the divine sense of the possessor was even more powerful, and it was the divine sense of a heaven-crushing cultivator. Although it had been dormant for countless years and seemed to have suffered severe injuries, it was still able to fiercely suppress Zhuowen's divine sense. Cold sweat dripped down the main body's forehead. There was a deep connection between the clone and the main body's divine sense. Now that the clone's divine sense was suffering a powerful attack and enduring terrifying pain, the main body was also suffering. Xiao He, the sacrificial death sword, and the blood immortal sword all surrounded Zhuowen, guarding Zhuowen. They were all very worried. In order not to worry his family, Zhuowen didn't tell Xiao He to notify the Ryuka people stationed in the Great World. Instead, he silently endured on the island in the middle of the lake. At this moment, Zhuowen was continuously swallowing heaven-crushing divine pills to repair his divine sense. He could tell that the cultivator in the golden coffin was definitely a terrifying supreme being at his peak. However, this person's injuries were severe, and he could only rely on possession to survive. His divine sense was most likely also severely damaged. Otherwise, with the terrifying power of a heaven-crushing cultivator's divine sense, Zhuowen's divine sense would be instantly destroyed and replaced. However, that cultivator had only gained the upper hand now, and hadn't completely possessed Zhuowen. Zhuowen knew that he had a chance to survive this possession battle. Time passed one day after another. Zhuowen lay on the island in the middle of the lake, continuously rolling around, enduring the pain, and continuously swallowing divine pills to repair his divine sense. At the same time, he also used this opportunity to continuously cultivate his divine sense sword intent. The divine soul sword intent was indeed extraordinary. In the battle of possession, his divine soul was almost shattered into pieces, shattered into many pieces. Enduring the pain, he activated the spiritual soul sword intent cultivation method, instantly transforming the shattered spiritual soul into spiritual soul sword intent. Then, the spiritual soul sword intent immediately launched a terrifying attack that blasted into the expert's spiritual soul. For a time, this battle of possession was in a stalemate. Although Zhuowen was at a disadvantage, he was not completely crushed. He had a chance to counterattack. Damn it! How is this kid's divine sense so powerful? Even the divine sense of a half-step heaven-crushing cultivator isn't as difficult to deal with as him. Also, he actually knows such a powerful divine soul attack. I really miscalculated. The expert who had taken over the body had a gloomy look on his face. After attacking for a long time without success, he became somewhat anxious. His divine soul was indeed stronger than Zhuowen's, but his injuries were too severe. His divine soul could not be maintained for too long, so he had to end the battle quickly. But now, he was actually entangled with an ant from the starry sky of the lower realm for so long. This was something he had not expected. In particular, the spiritual soul sword intent that Zhuowen had condensed was actually quite a big hindrance to him. Although the spiritual soul sword intent could only cause him light injuries, every time he shattered Zhuowen's spiritual soul, the shattered spiritual soul would immediately condense spiritual soul sword intent and attack him with no regard for his life. Ants could kill an elephant with enough strength. No matter how powerful this expert's spiritual soul was, he could not continue to waste time with Zhuowen like this. Break for me. The expert who had taken over the body no longer held back. Inside Zhuowen's spiritual world, dazzling golden light surrounded his body, and an aura that was as vast as the sea instantly erupted. In an instant, the strength of the expert's spiritual soul reached an extremely terrifying level. Then, he threw a punch. This punch was too terrifying. It was as if it could shatter heaven and earth, and it was as if it could destroy anything that stood in its way. Rumble! Suddenly, Zhuowen's spiritual soul was torn apart. The countless spiritual soul soared intents that were attacking the expert who had taken over the body dissipated, and countless cracks appeared on the surface of the Pangu banner that was guarding the spiritual world. Crack! Finally, the Pangu banner could not withstand such a terrifying punch and was annihilated into nothingness. Zhuowen suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His aura gradually weakened, like a patient on the verge of death. Xiao He noticed this scene and immediately rushed to Zhuowen with an anxious look on his face. "Kid, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me." Xiao He was really frightened. He watched as Zhuowen's aura continued to fade. This was a sign of death, and he could not help but cry. Since the beginning of Zhuowen's cultivation, he had been by Zhuowen's side. He had long established a deep relationship with Zhuowen. Now Zhuowen's aura was collapsing. Xiao He was really anxious. His heart was filled with grief, but he realized that there was nothing he could do to help. Zhuowen's consciousness was becoming more and more blurry, and his spiritual world was collapsing. The expert who had taken over the body in the spiritual world sighed softly and said with a complicated expression, "I really did not expect that a mere ant from the starry skies of the lower realms would be able to entangle with me until now. It's really not easy. However, to be able to die in my hands, you can consider your death a worthy one. You can go in peace. I will accept this body of yours." Zhuowen's vision became darker and darker. He was very unwilling to be taken over by this strange expert just like that. He still had many things to do. How could he die like this? He was too unwilling to accept this. Zhuowen was screaming and roaring in his heart. Even though he was very unwilling, his consciousness was becoming more and more blurry. He realized with grief that he could not do anything before his death. Right at this moment, a blazing purple light appeared on Zhuowen's chest. Xiao He, who had originally been filled with grief, was surprised to see this scene. He lifted Zhuowen's collar and discovered that it was the mysterious Supreme Stone. Ever since Zhuowen knew that the Supreme Stone had an extraordinary origin, he had tied it around his neck with a string. At this moment, the Supreme Stone was glowing with a mysterious purple light. Then, the Supreme Stone began to float. It actually transformed into a purple light and entered the depths of Zhuowen's glabella. In the instant that the Supreme Stone entered the shattered spiritual world, purple light permeated the air and instantly stabilized his shattered spiritual world. Then, his spiritual world began to reassemble, exuding a faint purple light. However, after his spiritual world reassembled, it actually no longer looked like a starry sky. Instead, it was an incredibly huge purple lake. And the Supreme Stone was floating in the center of the purple lake. The mysterious Supreme character inscribed on the Supreme Stone actually exuded a blazing purple light. Zhuowen's spiritual world instantly recovered at this moment. Moreover, he also discovered that his spiritual world had become stronger and more resilient. With his current estimation, he discovered that the strength of his spiritual world had most likely already surpassed that of ordinary half-step heaven-crushing cultivators. It was close to the level of fifth heaven's blight cultivators like Wu Taiji and the Three Pure Ones. This is Chapter 3463. Self-created cultivation method. It's actually the primordial stone. You actually have such a thing on you. It's really unbelievable. The possessor trembled with excitement, and greed appeared in his eyes. He stretched out his hand toward the floating primordial stone and said excitedly, "This primordial stone is mine, ha ha." At this moment, the possessor was completely swayed by his excitement. The primordial stone was only a legend in the outer regions. It was a supreme treasure that could cause rivers of blood to flow. He didn't expect to encounter it. Splat! The possessor's right hand had just reached out, and the moment it touched the purple lake, his right hand exploded. Then, countless purple water pillars rose up from the calm purple lake and swept out like lightning, instantly enveloping the powerhouse who had taken over the body. The possessor woke up and roared angrily. The power of his divine sense exploded, wanting to destroy the surrounding purple water pillars. But very soon he was disappointed. This purple lake contained a mysterious power, and he was actually unable to break free from the purple lake. He could only watch as he was dragged by the water column into the depths of the purple lake. Splash! The possessor's divine sense was pulled into the water and sank into the depths of the purple lake. Then, the purple lake returned to its calm state. Zhuowen watched all this silently, his eyes filled with shock. The possessor who was so powerful and almost destroyed his divine sense was actually killed by the purple lake in an instant. Zhuowen looked at the primordial stone floating above the center of the purple lake, and his eyes were filled with awe. This mysterious primordial stone actually had such terrifying power. The possessor was a heaven-breaking realm cultivator, but in front of this primordial stone, he was as weak as a clay chicken. Then, dense purple characters surged out from the primordial stone and fell into the purple lake. Then, the purple lake continued to expand and instantly drowned Zhuowen's entire spiritual world. To be more precise, Zhuowen's spiritual world had been replaced by the purple lake. And the purple lake was filled with purple characters. These characters were ancient and were mysterious characters that didn't belong to this starry sky. These mysterious characters flowed in the purple lake, emitting a hazy purple light, like tadpoles made of purple jade. Zhuowen recognized these words. They were the first part of the primordial grand mist technique. Back then, he had studied the first part of the earth art through the Tai word stone. He knew that the cultivation base of this art had to be at the Heaven Breaker realm, and it could only be cultivated up to the Heaven Breaker 6 transformations. It was an incomplete art. At that time, Zhuowen had already realized how extraordinary this cultivation method was. If he could cultivate it, he would definitely soar to the heavens. But now, because of the moment of life and death, the Supreme Word Stone had actually fused with his divine sense. He discovered that his divine sense had been elevated to a higher level and had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. Previously, Zhuowen's divine sense had already become extremely powerful after being nurtured by the Panga banner. It was comparable to the divine sense of a half-step heaven-crushing cultivator at the second blight. But now, because of the fusion with the Supreme Word Stone, his spirit had really soared. It had at least reached the peak stage of the fifth heaven's blight, and was not far from the strength of a true heaven-shattering tier elite's spirit. Moreover, Zhuowen also discovered that the mysterious words in the Supreme Word Stone had fused with his divine sense, Violet Lake. He actually completely comprehended the first part of the primordial grand mist technique in an instant. He was clear that as long as his cultivation base could successfully break through to the Heaven Breaker realm, cultivating the primordial grand mist technique would immediately reach the initial stage, and his strength would far surpass ordinary heaven-shattering tier elite. And at this moment, his comprehension ability reached an unprecedented height under the boost of the mysterious words. The primordial grand mist technique has already completely fused with my divine sense and memories. Although I can't cultivate this kind of cultivation method now, I can refer to this part of the primordial grand mist technique and create a heaven-shattering cultivation method that surpasses the starry skies of the lower realm. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with understanding. The level of the primordial grand mist technique was really too high, far surpassing ordinary heaven-shattering cultivation method. It was profound and obscure, and its might was enormous. Now that he had completely comprehended this cultivation method, he was confident that he could refer to the primordial grand mist technique and create a heaven-shattering cultivation method that was suitable for him. He could cultivate the cultivation method he created and quickly advance to the heaven-shattering tier. At this moment, Zhuowen was sitting cross-legged on the island in the middle of the lake. His body emitted a purple glow, mysterious and serene. Xiao He, who was originally worried about Zhuowen, saw Zhuowen sit up energetically, and immediately turned her tears into laughter. She said loudly to herself, "This brat's life is as tough as a cockroach, as expected, he won't die so easily." Although Xiao He's mouth was still so venomous, she was very happy to see that Zhuowen was fine. Zhuowen sat for 3 days and 3 nights. The purple glow around his body became more and more intense, and Zhuowen's figure appeared in the purple lake of his divine sense, continuously practicing some kind of cultivation method. At this moment, Zhuowen's comprehension ability underwent a transformation, and he fell into an unprecedented state of enlightenment. The speed at which he practiced the cultivation method was also very fast. 1 month, 2 months, half a year passed, and the seated Zhuowen finally opened his eyes. His eyes emitted a purple glow, and then he took out a jade scroll. There was no content in this jade scroll. He used his mind as a pen, and began to continuously inscribe an extremely profound and obscure cultivation method on the jade scroll. Moreover, as he continued to inscribe, the jade scroll actually seemed to come alive, emitting a boundless aura of Tao that overflowed in all directions. The scene was extremely shocking, and its aura was extremely vast. This brat is creating his own cultivation method? Xiao He quickly noticed Zhuowen's abnormal state, and saw that Zhuowen was actually rapidly inscribing, and she could tell at a glance what Zhuowen's intentions were. Xiao He was stunned. 4 cultivators who had cultivated to Zhuowen's level, creating their own cultivation method was not surprising. But generally, the highest level of self-created cultivation method was around the level of their current cultivation level, and it was absolutely impossible to create a cultivation method that was higher than their own cultivation level. But now, the cultivation method that Zhuowen was inscribing was accompanied by the appearance of a strange phenomenon. This was definitely not an ordinary cultivation method, and from the powerful aura emitted by the cultivation method, it could be seen that this cultivation method that Zhuowen had created was very impressive. Zhuowen spent a total of 10 days and 10 nights inscribing. The moment Zhuowen finished the last stroke, his mind was completely exhausted, and he completely fainted. However, at the moment when he fainted, Zhuowen felt that his cultivation level had integrated at this moment, and he naturally broke through to the late stage of the immortal ascension realm. The moment the cultivation method was completed, all kinds of unbelievable phenomena appeared in the sky, and thunder rumbled, as if a heavenly tribulation was about to descend. Damn! What kind of cultivation method is this? The moment it's created, even the heavens are going to be angry. Xiao He was completely shocked. After seeing that Zhuowen had fainted, she hurriedly brought Zhuowen into the pavilion on the island in the middle of the lake to cultivate. The jade scroll was full of spirituality, and it automatically fell into Zhuowen's chest, and even rubbed against Zhuowen intimately. Did it really become a spirit? Chapter 3464. Primordial Mantra. Zhuowen slowly woke up and found himself lying on a luxurious bed. He slowly sat up and slapped his forehead. "Kid, you're finally awake." Xiao He appeared beside Zhuowen's bed and sized up Zhuowen. After confirming that Zhuowen was indeed fine, a trace of relief appeared in her eyes. Zhuowen shook his head, and immediately noticed a jade scroll in front of his chest. "This is the cultivation technique you created yourself. Kid, what kind of medicine did you take before? You actually created your own cultivation technique, and this cultivation technique of yours actually caused a phenomenon of heaven and earth. What kind of cultivation technique is this? It's so heaven-defying. Xiao Hei was very curious, and she couldn't help but ask as she sized up the jade scroll in Zhuowen's hand. Zhuowen browsed through the contents of the jade scroll, and his eyes flashed as he said in a deep voice, "This cultivation technique will be called the primordial mantra, and it's a heaven-crushing technique. If you cultivate this cultivation technique, you'll be able to break through the heavens." This cultivation technique was created with reference to the ancient primordial mantra, so it was reasonable for Zhuowen to name it the primordial mantra. What? You've actually created a heaven-breaker cultivation technique? Are you sure you're not joking with me? Xiao Hei exclaimed in surprise. Zhuowen didn't explain, and he tossed the jade scroll to Xiao Hei. The latter browsed through it, and the more she read, the more shocked she became. In the end, she returned the jade scroll to Zhuowen and sighed softly. "I really didn't expect that you actually created a heaven-crushing technique. This cultivation technique can cultivate both the physical body and the divine sense. Xiao Hei, although you're an artifact spirit, you can also cultivate it," Zhuowen said with a smile. Xiao Hei was stunned, and then he excitedly grabbed the jade slip and said, "Then I'll accept it. If I'm able to cultivate this cultivation technique of yours, then wouldn't this dragon lord be able to break through the heavens very quickly as well?" Zhuowen smiled and nodded. When he had first created this cultivation technique, he had already considered both the physical body and the divine sense. Thus, he had created the primordial mantra so that both the divine sense and the physical body could cultivate it. Zhuowen could predict that if he continued to cultivate the primordial mantra, his divine sense would quickly transform, and at that time, his divine sense would definitely break through to the heaven-crushing technique mantra. "Oh, Xiao Hei, give a copy of the primordial mantra, and give it to the Ryuka. Let the members of the Long family cultivate this primordial mantra." After Zhuowen, and Zhuowen's translation as translation, and Xiao Hei translation mantra translation. Translation 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 is translation 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 is translation translation translation. Translation is translation _ translation translation Lu Yas translation 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 as on translation 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 is translation translation as translations translation translation. Translation translation is I'm actually not affected by the pressure? Zhuowen's eyes suddenly flashed. He realized that when the pressure fell on him, it was mostly on his avatar. His main body didn't react at all. Zhuowen kept his doppelganger into his great world, leaving only his true body outside. It really didn't affect me at all. When only his original body was left, Zhuowen found that his whole body was relaxed, and the pressure around him did not seem to exist. It had to be known that this pressure was something that had existed in the primordial chaos since ancient times. It represented the might of the primordial chaos. However, his true body of the human race wasn't affected at all. This had Zhuowen both pleasantly surprised and bewildered. Could it be because my human true body doesn't have a Tao root? Zhuowen felt that the possibility of this conjecture was very high. In the starry sky of the lower realms, a cultivator without a Tao root was utterly incapable of attaining the Tao, let alone breaking through the heavens. For countless years, this was an iron rule, but Zhuowen had broken it. With a body without a Tao root, he had successfully attained the Tao and cultivated to his current level. It could be said that it was a miracle. Zhuowen was very excited. If it was because of his supreme Tao root that he wasn't affected by the pressure of the primordial chaos, then didn't that mean that even if he wasn't a supreme expert of the great carefree realm, he could still roam the primordial chaos? However, he knew that his speed was completely incomparable to that of a great carefree realm expert. If he wanted to roam the primordial chaos and reach the 100 domains outside the realm, he would probably need to spend a lot of time. Zhuowen threw away the distracting thoughts in his mind, and his gaze fell on the golden coffin behind the wordless tombstone. This was the coffin of a heaven-breaking realm expert, and the things inside were absolutely priceless. Not to mention the things inside the golden coffin, just the divine swords that formed a circle outside were all heaven-breaking grade divine swords, and their value was immeasurable. Zhuowen passed by the wordless tombstone, his eyes bright and full of expression, and soon arrived in front of the golden coffin. The divine soul of the owner of the golden coffin had already been annihilated by the primordial stone, and the surrounding restriction had long been broken, so the pressure emitted by the golden coffin had already dissipated by most of it. The only thing that still existed here was the powerful pressure that had existed since ancient times in the primordial chaos, and Zhuowen's main body was completely unafraid of the pressure of the primordial chaos. There were a total of 9 divine swords surrounding the golden coffin, and the chains that bound the sword hilts had long been broken. Zhuowen walked to the front of one of the divine swords, and discovered that this divine sword's divine splendor was restrained. He grasped the sword hilt and began to pull it out, but soon failed. The divine sword didn't move, and he was shaken by the divine splendor to the point of vomiting blood and retreating. These 9 divine swords are heaven-breaking grade divine weapons after all, but this dragon lord sees that the artifact spirits of these divine swords have already dispersed. Perhaps I can refine these 9 divine swords. Let me give it a try. At that moment, Xiao Hei's voice sounded, and then Xiao Hei flew out of the great world, and arrived at the divine sword's surroundings. Xiao Hei spat out a mouthful of lightning and fire energy, and began to refine one of the divine swords. Xiao Hei walked the path of artifact cultivators, so perhaps he could really refine this divine sword that was far beyond his level. He ignored the divine swords around him. His cultivation was too weak now, and he couldn't pull out these divine swords at all. According to his estimation, he should have at least the power of the 5th blight to be able to pull out the divine swords here. He came to the side of the golden coffin, and directly opened the lid. He saw an extremely handsome blond man lying quietly inside the coffin. However, the blond man's face was distorted, and his aura was completely gone. He knew that this person was the one who wanted to possess him. However, his divine soul had already been destroyed, and what laid in the coffin was only an empty shell. Zhuowen unceremoniously threw the blond man's corpse out of the coffin. To his disappointment, the golden coffin was empty except for the golden-haired man's corpse. Huh! Zhuowen suddenly noticed that the golden-haired man he had tossed aside was wearing a golden ring. Zhuowen took off the ring and studied it for a while. He was pleasantly surprised to find that it was a spatial ring. However, there was a powerful restriction on this spatial ring. This restriction was very powerful, and it should be a heaven-breaking grade restriction. However, Zhuowen also discovered that this restriction had been set up for too long, and was no longer complete. Zhuowen suppressed the joy in his heart, and began to take out the beast bone formation disc, concentrating on breaking the restriction on the surface of the golden ring. He was very clear that if he could break this spatial ring, then he'd be rich. This was the spatial ring of a heaven-breaking elite, and the things inside had to be beyond the starry sky of the lower realm. Chapter 3465. Great Gains. Zhuowen sat cross-legged near the golden coffin. He threw out array flags one after another and formed hand seals to break the seal on the golden ring. Although the seal had been damaged for countless years, it was still extraordinary when it was intact. It had surpassed the array formation seals in this part of the universe. Zhuowen's array formation skills were inherited from the Alchemy Array Immortal Lord, and he had even obtained the Alchemy Array Immortal Lord's true record of alchemy arrays. He had already reached the peak of the ascension level. However, it was still very difficult to break the seal on the golden ring. His progress was very slow. However, Zhuo was never tired of it because he was also comprehending the powerful restrictions as he cracked them open. His level in the Tao of formations was constantly improving and sublimating. Time passed by. Xiao He finally could not withstand the pressure here and entered the great world ahead of time. He studied it for a long time but still could not refine any of the divine swords around the golden coffin. 3 months later, Zhuo threw out the last array flag and formed hand seals. Suddenly, the sound of glass shattering could be heard from the golden ring. Zhuo was delighted. He knew that the seal on the golden ring was about to be broken. In these 3 months, Zhuo's array formation skills had improved very quickly. He had broken through the shackles of the peak of the ascension level and reached the peak of the ascension level. At this moment, the shattering sound became more and more obvious. Finally, the seal on the golden ring's surface collapsed. Zhuo was very excited. His shoulders were trembling. He could not wait to open the golden ring. The space inside the golden ring was very large. It was many times larger than ordinary spirit rings in the lower realm. Zhuo saw many divine herbs in the golden ring. The lowest grade among them was at the peak of the ascension level. There were also many that were half a step into the ascension level. He even saw 9 stalks of divine herbs at the center of the cluster. These 9 stalks of divine herbs spewed out terrifying divine light. The divine light shone brightly and manifested all kinds of strange phenomena, such as divine birds flying in the sky and true dragons roaring in the sky. These are ascension-level divine herbs. Zhuo's pupils constricted. He recognized the 9 stalks of divine herbs at a glance. He could not hide his excitement. In addition, Zhuo also found 3 jade slips inside, as well as a pile of crystal stones. These crystals were very rich in energy. Zhuo also found that these crystals did not contain heavenly Tao energy. Instead, it was a higher type of energy. Zhuo found that this energy was the same as the mysterious energy in the Chaos Star. Zhuo took the 3 jade slips and browsed through them one by one. What surprised him was that one of the jade slips was the names, the grades, names, and attributes of the various divine herbs in the golden ring. Among the pile of divine medicines, he could basically recognize all of the heaven-piercing divine medicines. As for the half-step heaven-piercing divine medicines and heaven-piercing divine medicines, he knew absolutely nothing about them. After he looked at this jade slip, only then did he know that heaven-breaking grade divine medicines were divided into a total of 9 levels, respectively heaven-breaking level 1 to heaven-breaking level 9. And the 9 stalks of divine herbs in the golden ring were only level ascension translation. It looks like the owner of this golden ring is only at the first or second heaven-crushing transformation stage. Zhuo muttered to himself. The second jade slip introduced the 9 divine swords and the golden coffin. To Zhuo's surprise, the golden coffin was actually a second-order heaven-breaking flight divine artifact. Although it couldn't travel freely in the primal chaos starry sky, it could withstand the pressure of the primal chaos starry sky and fly at low speed. The owner of the golden coffin was seriously injured and on the verge of death. He hid in the coffin and drifted in the chaotic starry sky. Finally, he landed on the half-broken planet near the starry sky of the lower realm where he was. Zhuo finally knew the name of the 9 divine swords. They were called the 9 Tribulations Sword Formation. This sword formation was formed by 9 level 1 heaven-breaking divine sword. Its power was extremely terrifying. It was said that it was comparable to ordinary level 2 heaven-breaking divine tools. What surprised Zhuo even more was that the core of the 9 Tribulations sword formation was actually the golden ring in his hand. Refining this golden ring meant that he could completely control the 9 Tribulations sword formation. The third jade slip contained a cultivation technique. Zhuo had a strange look in his eyes. This cultivation technique was the extreme purple spiritual technique that Bing Hui had given him. Looks like this extreme purple spiritual technique is probably only a basic heaven-breaking cultivation technique in the 100 territories. Zhuowen murmured to himself. Since Bing Hui and the owner of this golden coffin both had this extreme purple spiritual technique, Zhuowen knew that this cultivation technique was very widespread in the 100 territories. And it was not hard to guess that the cultivation technique that was very widespread was only a basic cultivation technique. At the same time, he also knew that the crystals in the golden ring were chaos crystals. Chaos crystals were born in the chaos star. There was an introduction inside. After a cultivator advanced to the heaven-breaking realm, the level of energy would undergo a tremendous change. The energy that heaven-breaking realm cultivators needed to cultivate was no longer the so-called energy of the heavenly Tao. Instead, it was chaotic energy that had more complete laws, and chaotic energy could only be found in the chaos star. Heaven-breaking realm cultivators absorbed chaotic energy, and through their dantian, transformed it into shattering divine power. Zhuowen also finally knew what the mysterious energy contained in the chaos star was. It was the chaotic energy that was mentioned in the golden ring. Zhuowen placed all the godly medicines and chaos crystals in the golden ring into the great world. This great world was created by Zhuowen, and it evolved continuously as his cultivation level increased. Even in the chaos star, there was probably no such miraculous space like Zhuowen's great world. It was a unique treasure that Zhuowen possessed. After doing all this, Zhuowen started to refine the golden ring. And it took him a whole 3 months to refine the golden ring. When he completely refined the golden ring, the 9 tribulations sword formation around the golden coffin actually broke out of the ground and entered the golden ring. And what surprised Zhuowen was that with a thought, the golden coffin actually also entered the golden ring. It looked like the golden ring was not only the core of the 9 tribulations sword formation, but it was also the key to activating the golden coffin. He had gained a lot this time. Zhuowen had long been dissatisfied with the speed of the space-time roulette. In truth, it could have been eliminated long ago. However, Zhuowen had not been able to find a more suitable flight god tool, so he had not replaced the space-time roulette all this time. Now, he had obtained the golden coffin. Although its appearance was very strange, it was at least a level 2 heaven-breaking flying god tool. Its speed was so fast that no one in the entire lower realm could catch up to it. Moreover, Zhuowen also discovered that this golden coffin did not need his divine power to fly. It only needed chaos crystals to fly. Chapter 3466. Tian Wu's corpse. Other than that, what made Zhuowen the most bitter was the 9 tribulations sword formation. He tried to use the golden ring to activate the 9 tribulations sword formation, but he helplessly found that he could only activate one divine sword. Moreover, this divine sword was merely floating in the air. Stabbing once, it consumed all of Zhuowen's energy, almost causing Zhuowen to faint on the spot. Zhuowen knew that with his current level, it was probably far from enough to use the 9 tribulations sword formation. After doing all this, Zhuowen was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the spot and started to cultivate the primordial mantra he created. What surprised Zhuowen was that, after circulating the primordial chant, his cultivation speed was actually extremely fast. He crazily absorbed the surrounding energy, and his body was like a river that was flowing into the sea, constantly condensing and absorbing this energy. No, I can actually absorb chaotic energy? After cultivating for a while, Zhuowen suddenly woke up. He found that the meridians all over his body were circulating, and what he was absorbing was actually chaotic energy. Moreover, after this chaotic energy entered his body, it was actually transformed by the primordial mantra into an energy of a higher level than heavenly Tao energy. Zhuowen was very clear what this was. It was shattered divine power. Zhuowen was shocked. He had not reached the heaven-breaking realm yet, and not only could he absorb chaotic energy, but he could even produce shattered divine power in his body. This was too inconceivable. Was it because his human original body did not have a Tao root, or was it because of the primordial mantra? Or was it because of both? Zhuowen did not think so much anymore. He faintly felt that the reason he absorbed chaotic energy in advance was very likely because he did not have a Tao root. After all, the pressure of the chaotic starry sky had no effect on his human original body, so absorbing chaotic energy and transforming it into shattered divine power did not seem particularly inconceivable. Zhuowen started to cultivate crazily. He activated the primordial mantra, and the purple light around his body was dazzling. Like a water pump, he crazily absorbed the chaotic energy around him. After the chaos energy was converted into broken God force, it began to repel the heavenly Tao energy in Zhuowen's body. After all the heavenly Tao energy was expelled, Zhuowen's body was only left with broken God force. Zhuowen's cultivation base was also increasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. When he created the primordial incantation, his cultivation base had already broken through from the mid-stage to the late stage. Now, his cultivation base had skyrocketed from the late Heavenly Master stage all the way to the peak late Heavenly Master stage. Finally, a thunderous rumble rang out from Zhuowen's body, and Zhuowen's aura surged out like a tidal wave. He had actually broken through to the peak of the transcending heaven sovereign realm. Zhuowen did not continue to break through. He knew that he was breaking through too quickly. If he continued to break through, his foundation would be unstable. In the following period of time, he would stabilize his foundation before continuing to cultivate. Zhuowen stood up. His eyes were filled with excitement. His harvest this time was simply too heaven-defying. Coupled with the fact that he had broken God force in advance, his combat strength was already unimaginable. It could be said that even if Zhuowen did not rely on his doppelganger, his human body could easily kill a peak heavenly master. Even a first blight expert who was half a step away from the heaven-breaking realm might not necessarily be his opponent. At this moment, Zhuowen discovered that his human body, which had the primordial incantation, had far more potential than his doppelganger. He knew very well that if he wanted to upgrade his Pangu sacred body, he not only needed enough energy, but also the ancestral sorcery venomous insects. If he could not gather all the ancestral sorcery venomous insects, it would be difficult for his Pangu sacred body to be perfected. It would always be flawed. However, Zhuowen did not intend to give up on his doppelganger. He still intended to make his doppelganger complete because the Pangu sacred body was the only thing in the lower world that could restrain the beasts of chaos. In the future, it would be able to guard this starry sky. I just returned to the heaven-accessing realm. Zhuowen got up, left the broken planet, and rushed toward the heaven-accessing realm. Soon, he arrived at the border of the chaotic canyon. He found that the gap that he had broken open had been repaired. However, he did not care. With his current level of formation skills, it was too easy to break open a gap at the border. When he entered the chaotic canyon, he found that the number of cultivators in the canyon was pitifully small. Moreover, he found many corpses. There were traces of a great battle in the chaotic canyon. "Fellow Taoist, please help me." Suddenly, Zhuowen saw a middle-aged man lying among several corpses. When he saw Zhuowen, he hurriedly asked for help. Zhuowen came to the middle-aged man, took out a healing elixir, and fed it to him. He asked, "Fellow Taoist, what happened in the chaotic canyon? Why is it a mess?" "The corpse of ancestral sorcery Tianwu has appeared, causing a great battle between the human clan and the alien clan. Many cultivators died." After the middle-aged man took the healing elixir, his breathing became much more stable. Fellow Taoist, now the chaotic starry sky is a place of trouble. You'd better leave here quickly. Hearing this, Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He did not expect that the corpse of the ancestral sorcerer really existed in the chaotic starry sky within the heaven-accessing place. It seemed that the Black King did not lie to him. The rest of the ancestral sorcerer corpses should be here. After Zhuowen asked the middle-aged man where the great battle was now, he left the chaotic canyon. Now that he had just obtained a great opportunity and his cultivation had increased rapidly, it was just the right time to train himself. Moreover, the ancestral sorcery goo in the corpse was something that he must obtain. He would not stand by and watch. Hundreds of millions of miles away from the chaotic canyon, there was a wasteland floating in the starry sky. The wasteland was very large and filled with all kinds of ruins. At this moment, there were thousands of figures gathered in the wasteland, including both the human clan and the alien clan. And the focus of these cultivators was basically on the two figures in the crowd. The skin color of these two people was very different. One was light blue and the other was bright red. If Zhuowen was here, he would definitely recognize these two people. Back then, he had seen these two people in the newly built Witch God City. At that time, Dong Wangtai had just visited Wizard God City, and these two people had come to see him off. He remembered that these two people were called Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao. They were former Saint Lords of the Sorcerer Tribe and experts of the Sorcerer Tower in the chaotic street of the heaven-accessing place. Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao looked around at the crowd. Wu Jiyan said to the experts of the alien clan, "Everyone, the ancestral sorcerer is the ancestor of our sorcerer tribe. The corpse of ancestral sorcerer Tianwu should belong to our sorcerer tower. However, you can rest assured that you have done a good job in discovering the corpse. Follow me back to the sorcerer tower in the chaotic street. Lord Wu Taiji will definitely reward you handsomely. However, if anyone dares to have any ideas, you will be on the sorcerer tower's kill list in the future. No matter where you go, you will not be able to survive." After Wu Jiyan's words, many of the experts of the alien clan suddenly became cautious. Chapter 3467. White-robed sword demon. As soon as Wu Jiyan finished speaking, the foreign race cultivators that surrounded Wu Jimiao and Wu Jiyan quietly retreated. The Wu Tower was too powerful on the chaotic street. They were all residents of the chaotic street. Offending the Wu Tower was not worth it. Humph. Wu Jiyan, Wu Jimiao, the 12 ancestors of the shamans were formed by the body of the ancient god Pangu. The 3 pure ones were formed by Pangu's primordial spirit. They come from the same source. This ancestor shaman's body should belong to the 3 pure palace. After the foreign race cultivators retreated, a white-haired man slowly walked out from the group of human cultivators. The white-haired man carried a divine sword on his back. His eyes shone brightly, and his aura was extremely powerful. This person was also half a step away from the heaven-breaking realm. His aura was no weaker than Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao. More accurately, he was even stronger than Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao. It's the famous white-haired sword demon Jiang Ruisi. He's a peak first blight cultivator and is ranked in the top 20 of the 3 pure street. He's extremely powerful. After the white-haired man walked out, the people around him exclaimed. Clearly, many people recognized him. Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao's expressions darkened when they saw the white-haired man. They didn't expect that the white-haired sword demon, Jiang Ruisi, would be in the vicinity. It should be known that the half-step heaven-crushing experts in the heaven-accessing secret realm were almost always elusive. Most of them were in seclusion, and very few of them would be like other cultivators, searching for things in the chaotic starry sky in exchange for cave rent. This was because half-step heaven-crushing cultivators had special privileges. They could live in the top-grade cave abodes, and they didn't have to pay rent. Jiang Ruisi was also in seclusion. Later, he received a message from the three Pure Ones and had to come out to help the three Pure Ones take back the ancestor shaman Tian Wu's body. Although the ancestor shaman's body contained extremely powerful energy, it was very beneficial to foreign races who cultivated their physical bodies. It wasn't as effective for humans. To Jiang Ruisi, using the ancestor shaman's body to cultivate was not as effective as cultivating in the heaven-reaching secret realm. If it weren't for the three Pure Ones inviting him out of seclusion, he might still be cultivating in seclusion right now. At that moment, Zhuowen arrived and saw Wu Jiyan, Wu Jimiao, and Jiang Ruisi facing each other. Many strong cultivators were watching from afar. Wu Jiyan, Wu Jimiao, you are no match for me. Give me ancestor sorcerer Tian Wu's body. Jiang Ruisi said coldly. Wu Jimiao laughed coldly. Jiang Ruisi, if any of us were to face you alone, we would not be your match. However, if we were to join forces, it would not be so easy for you to defeat us. Jiang Ruisi sneered with disdain. He took a step forward and a powerful aura gushed out like a tidal wave. Clang! Jiang Ruisi made his move. His speed was very fast. The moment he rushed out, the divine sword on his back was immediately unsheathed. It blossomed with a dazzling divine splendor like a rising sun. Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao's faces darkened. They joined forces and flew towards Jiang Ruisi. Rumble! The two of them immediately engaged in a fierce battle. Terrifying energy ripples spread out and the surrounding starry sky exploded. Everything within range of the explosion was turned into fine powder. The onlookers stayed far away, and Zhuowen blended into the crowd. From the discussions of the crowd, he knew that ancestor sorcerer Tian Wu's body was in Wu Jiyan's spirit ring. Zhuowen did not act rashly. Instead, he silently observed the battle between Jiang Ruisi and the other two. Regardless of whether it was Zhuowen's original body or his avatar, they were no weaker than a first blight expert. When the two of them combined, their battle power doubled. They could fight a second blight expert. If Zhuowen combined his original body and avatar and intervened, Zhuowen would be able to defeat any one of the three. However, Zhuowen did not do so. It would be too conspicuous. After all, he was still wanted by Wu Taiji. Furthermore, Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao were members of the sorcerer tribe. They had a grudge against him. Although he was confident that he could defeat them, it would be difficult to kill them. Therefore, he was waiting for an opportunity. An opportunity for both sides to be injured. Boom! 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 The white-clothed sword demon, Jiang Ruisi, was indeed powerful. He was not at a disadvantage in his battle with Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao. In fact, he had the upper hand. Soon, the battle between the two of them reached its climax. The battle became more and more intense, and the area of destruction became more and more extensive. Amidst the endless light, Jiang Ruisi found a flaw in Wu Jiyan's defense. The divine sword in his hand slashed out mercilessly, cutting Wu Jiyan in half. Blood splattered everywhere, raining down from the sky. Wu Jiyan screamed in agony. The two halves of his body flew backward in different directions. Just as Jiang Ruisi found an opportunity to cut Wu Jiyan in half, Wu Jimiao reacted quickly. He seized the best opportunity to pounce on Jiang Ruisi and throw a heavy punch. Wu Jimiao used all his strength in this punch. The fist force emitted a strange blue light as it slammed into Jiang Ruisi's chest. Jiang Ruisi groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. His chest had been pierced through. Strange icy lines spread out from the wound and wrapped around the left side of Jiang Ruisi's body, making it difficult for Jiang Ruisi to move. However, Jiang Ruisi's reaction was not slow. The moment he was pushed back, he threw out the divine sword in his hand. The divine sword emitted a divine light that could not be looked at directly. It was like a flying immortal. It moved as fast as lightning and instantly reached Wu Jimiao's chest. The divine sword was too fast. Wu Jimiao only had time to avoid being hit. His right hand and right shoulder were cut off. Blood splattered everywhere. In just an instant, Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao were both injured. Wu Jiyan's injuries were the most serious. He had been cut in half and his upper body had flown in opposite directions. At this moment, Wu Jiyan's upper body was approaching his lower body. He planned to put his upper body back together and use the way of the heavens to heal his injuries. Wu Jimiao's right arm and right shoulder had been cut off and turned to dust by the powerful sword light. At this moment, his injuries were slowly healing. The white-robed sword demon, Jiang Ruisi, was pale. He frantically used his divine power to resist the blue lines that had appeared in his chest. This was Wu Jimiao's icy power. It contained the extreme rules of ice and was very difficult to deal with. He was trying to force this power out. The spectators were all dumbstruck. They didn't think that a battle between half-step, heaven-crushing stage cultivators would be so terrifying. After all, they had clearly witnessed the explosion in the starry sky just then. That kind of violent energy was enough to kill a peak powerhouse like Lord Skirich countless times. Jiang Ruisi, Wu Jiyan, and Wu Jimiao stopped attacking. They faced each other from afar, trying to buy time to heal. The scene was eerily quiet. Chapter 3468. Consecutive annihilation. At this moment, Wu Jiyan's upper body was about to reach his lower body. The figure teleported in front of Wu Jiyan and stepped on his lower body. The powerful force caused Wu Jiyan's lower body to tremble violently, and he was sent flying again. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Instantly, all eyes gathered on the figure. No one had expected such a turn of events. Someone actually dared to step on Wu Jiyan's body. This person was tired of living. Soon, they discovered that this was a very ordinary-looking youth. He was dressed in white and had a pale complexion. He had the temperament of a weak scholar. Peak Master of Heaven? What is this guy trying to do? Is he provoking Wu Jiyan? This guy is finished. Although Wu Jiyan is seriously injured, he is still a first blight expert. He can kill this guy who is only at the peak of Master of Heaven with one blow. The crowd was in an uproar, but soon many people sneered. They felt that this youth who had suddenly stepped on Wu Jiyan's lower body was seeking his own death. You're courting death. Wu Jiyan was stunned at first. Then, he flew into a rage and slammed his palm toward the youth's head. This palm was too terrifying. It shook the heavens and earth. The surrounding space distorted and exploded. The aura was too terrifying. Jiang Ruisi and Wu Jimiao, who were recuperating in the distance, watched this scene expressionlessly. In their eyes, this youth who was at the peak of Master of Heaven was just an ant jumping around recklessly in front of them. They had no doubt that Wu Jiyan's palm was enough to turn this youth to dust. The young man's eyes were indifferent. He also threw out a punch. A mysterious purple light appeared on the surface of his fist. His aura was restrained. Compared to Wu Jian's powerful punch, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. The difference was too great. When he saw the youth's ordinary punch, Wu Jian almost laughed out loud. However, he quickly restrained himself. His eyes were cold as he used more strength. He planned to beat this arrogant youth to death with one punch. Poochie! The two fists collided. One of the fists cracked. The difference was too great. Blood splattered everywhere, accompanied by screams. It was a tragic scene. The spectators were all stunned. In their eyes, the disparity between the two of them was too great to begin with. However, what was happening before their eyes was indeed unstoppable. It was just that the person being destroyed was not the youth at the peak of the Sky Transcendence Master, but Wu Jian, whom they had high hopes for. Wu Jian's right fist was crushed. He screamed and retreated. His eyes were filled with shock and fear. The young man followed closely behind and threw another punch. His fist glowed purple and landed on Wu Jian's chest. Poochie! Wu Jian's right chest was shattered. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Wu Jian struggled with all his might, even burning his blood essence in an attempt to retreat. However, the young man would not give him another chance. His left hand formed a sword and pointed at Wu Jian's forehead, piercing through it. Plop! Wu Jian screamed and fell to the ground. His aura gradually disappeared and his eyes dimmed. The surroundings were too quiet, so quiet that it was frightening. Everyone looked at Wu Jian's corpse in disbelief. Wu Jian had been killed just like that. Jiang Ruisi was also stunned. When he regained his senses, his gaze turned heavy as he stared at Zhuo. Fear could be seen in his eyes. Ah! Bastard, how dare you kill my elder brother? I will kill you to pay for his death. Wu Jimiao regained his senses and roared angrily. His body exploded with blue light as he charged madly at the young man. The young man who had suddenly appeared and killed Wu Jian in a few moves was naturally Zhuo. This was the first time his human true body was going to battle after cultivating the primordial chaos art. The strength of his human true body was so strong that even Zhuo himself found it unbelievable. In terms of energy, Zhuo was far from Wu Jian's. However, he had broken godly power, which was of a higher level than heavenly path energy, circulating in his body. The penetrative power of the broken godly power was too terrifying. It was simply unstoppable. Zhuo knew that with the broken godly power, although his cultivation level was only at the peak of the Master of Heaven Pass, his battle power was enough to fight with Jiang Ruisi, who was at the peak of the First Blight. At that moment, Zhuo also noticed Wu Jimiao charging over. He quickly put away the spirit ring on Wu Jian's corpse. He knew that ancestor Wu Jian's corpse should be in Wu Jian's spirit ring. Bastard! You dared to sneak attack my elder brother and use despicable means to kill him. You will pay a huge price for this. Die! Wu Jimiao's attack had already arrived. The surrounding temperature instantly dropped, turning into an endless world of ice and snow. The bone-chilling cold spread out as if it could freeze one's blood. Wu Jimiao's right arm had been destroyed by Jiang Ruisi and had yet to recover. Thus, he had used his left hand, which was not very familiar with the attack. The power was greatly reduced. However, Wu Jimiao was very confident. In his opinion, Zhuo had killed Wu Jian with a sneak attack. In addition, Wu Jian had been seriously injured. That was how Zhuo had managed to kill him. In his heart, this person was just an ant at the peak of the Master of Heaven Pass. Even if he was injured, he could kill him with a flip of his hand. Zhuo saw Wu Jimiao's arrogance and laughed coldly. His right hand shot out like lightning and grabbed Wu Jimiao's fist. Broken godly power exploded. Crack! Wu Jimiao's left hand was broken by Zhuo. His bones were dislocated. What pained Wu Jimiao the most was that the broken godly power had entered his body and destroyed his flesh, meridians, and foundation. What? What kind of power is this? How can? Wu Jimiao screamed in pain. He could feel his body being invaded by the broken godly power. He broke out in a cold sweat and his face turned pale. Zhuo did not give Wu Jimiao a chance to speak. He bent his right knee and slammed it into Wu Jimiao's abdomen. Then, he raised his right leg and slammed it down. The back of Wu Jimiao's head was hit and he fell to the ground like a dog eating *T bang. Wu Jimiao was sprawled on the ground, his body twitching. He could not get up. His body was being invaded by the broken godly power. It was too painful. He felt as if his entire body was being torn apart. He screamed in pain. You have to pay the price for being so arrogant in front of me. Zhuo lifted Wu Jimiao and pointed his finger at the space between Wu Jimiao's eyebrows, destroying his spiritual soul. After Zhuowen took Wu Jimiao's spiritual ring, he threw Wu Jimiao's body aside like trash. His gaze landed on the white-robed sword demon, Jiang Ruisi,